time. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. We are in the Commission chambers, and I call this Road and Drainage District Governing Body meeting to order. Present are Commissioner Luke, Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Hanks, myself, Vice Mayor. At the present time, the mayor is not present. We also have our City Attorney Slayton, City Manager Lear, City Clerk Pito. And I'm looking, and the police chief, if you haven't met him, he's in the back of the room, and great guy. Police Chief Garrison. All right, if you all would please make sure that your phones are on silent, we greatly appreciate that. And if you're able to, please stand for a moment of silence for all that we know is going on, and we'll just keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers. And then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Luke.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If anybody would like to make a public comment, please fill out one of these cards. We do have various different ways to make public comment. If it's a general item, just fill it out. And we have number 2 as our general public comment. And then if you'd like to make a comment on any other item on the agenda, you may wait for that item to come up and have public comment during that. But if you do have to leave and you have an item that you want to speak on, you're more than welcome to do that at the public comment general session. So I just want to let folks know that if you couldn't sit through the meeting, you're certainly able to make the general public comment or an item on the agenda comment when I call people up for the second, number 2, item number 2. All right, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner McDowell to approve the agenda as presented, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Seeing no questions or anything, please vote. Hey, it's working today. Ooh, I shouldn't have said that.
Don't speak too quickly.
We always have a little technology glitches, but so far so good. All right, and that is approved 4-0. Okay, next up, I do have 2 public comment cards, so I will call you up. Please come to the podium here on my left. And I have Dave Matos. Okay, come on up, sir. You can make your public comment. You have 3 minutes. Just go right there. And that's kind of rectangle-looking thing. The bar is the microphone, so you just have to stand in front of that, and we'll hear you. And please state your name for the record.
David Mattis.
Thank you.
Okay. The reason I'm here today is to do with permitting for sheds, and I know this is a road drainage thing. The permits were $109.80 for the longest time, which was, my customers could deal with that. Then they dropped it down to $69, which was wonderful. The people really liked that. Then Road and Drainage decided we got to do another form. It jumped up to $119. So we're all over the board in like a year and a half. And now they just put on another assessment of $55. Now we're up to $174.30. And the problem is I got at least 10 people, customers are not happy because they already wrote out checks for $119. And now they're well, long story short, I'd like to know why they went up so much. Where they were already doing something for road and drains, they're adding more to it. And it's not good for business either, And I know the city wants to get income, but I'd like to know what that $55 represents and what good is it doing. That's my comment.
Thank you, sir.
And I want to keep some
And-
people happy too, you know?
I think you'll be pleased to know that, you know, the shed permits has been a process, and even the cost of it has been something that residents have kind of expressed some concern about for a while. I
Yeah.
did submit a request that we are going to have an item that this commission is going to address to pin down each of those fees, and also to come up with something more feasible. You know, if people want a garden shed tool, you know, to put their tools, you know, they have to get a right-of-way permit and
They need
all
a
of that. So
survey, they need.
exactly.
And the
So-
ones that don't have a survey, that's like $350.
Absolutely.
And that hurts too.
Yes. So just so you know, and thank you for bringing the issue up, but, you know, that request was submitted to the city manager, and we should be
Okay.
taking that up on November 1st.
Okay, and I have one more comment.
Absolutely.
If they do make a change,
Yeah.
give us a warning. You know, I mean, I came into the permit office and they, oh, by the way, the shed permits went up last week. It's like, email me, let me know when it's coming, you know what I mean? So, but that's all.
Well, we'll address that, and hopefully if you're able to make that meeting as well. If not, yourself and anybody else from the public, if you have some thoughts on that. You know, there's just what I'm looking for is something that's, you know, reasonable, common sense kind of
No,
approach
that sounds
to
good.
things. So
North
thank you
Port's a
so
nice
much for
city,
your
don't get me, I
comment.
live here, it's great, but.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and did anybody else have any comments?
Since I'm not familiar with what is going to be presented on the agenda for the first, if it can include a way to possibly halt the additional charges, I don't know how that would work, but until we can get it worked out, maybe bring something forth about that too.
Just to answer your question, the way that I submitted the item actually covers and breaks down the process, what people have to go through, and then the fees and a breakdown of each fee and what it's for. And then there's, depending upon which department or district those come from, that'll be the conversation that we can have to address some, you know, common sense, realistic ways of addressing
Yeah, but
this.
that, I'm hearing months
No, it's
to get this
November
resolved.
1st.
I understand, but to have anything change and have anything resolved, I'm hearing months. And that's a very long time to have this going out there, especially if there's going to be a change made.
We'll look at ways that, depending on what the body decides, if there's ways that we put a moratorium on any increased fees, or, because right now we have a fee schedule, it's done by ordinance, so yes,
I
in order
know.
to change that would be at least 6 weeks. But if there's ways that we can do something in the meantime, we'll bring those options to you as well on November 1st.
So what I'm hoping and I'm trying to express is not only bring that agenda item, but possibly a moratorium that we can vote on as appropriate, so that way then it can be put into place immediately. That's what I'm hoping for.
I can tell you we won't be able to have anything for a moratorium on November 1st, since that agenda is going out tomorrow. But what we can do is, we'll discuss options at that meeting, be prepared to discuss
There's-
options
yeah.
and get it
There's
as
a
quick
couple
as
of
possible.
suggestions that I'm making that, you know, if there's a process that right now is, people are being put through, and it's totally unnecessary, if you have a, you know, if you have a 4x8 shed, and you don't need to go through a right-of-way permit because it's going to be delivered in your driveway, then there are certain lines that if you're eliminating or not needing that particular process, that in itself will immediately reduce those. So I'll bring, you know, I'm trying to bring those options.
I just wanted to express a concern about a possible moratorium, because I know things, we wish things moved quickly, but they don't.
I know.
So,
All right, very good. Let's move on to the next public comment. Martin Lumper. And you know the drill, right? Mr. Lumpert? Please state your name for the record.
Martin Lumpert, Northport Estates. I sending an email for years, but now we got new police chief. I hope we get some no through truck enforcement and traffic boulevard. Number second, I was talking a month ago, drainage in my backyard, the weeds are over 7 feet tall. They're supposed to be cut on the side 6 times a year, center twice a year. I don't know, you know it, you here last time. Julie Belia say they're behind, but they shouldn't be behind because we're not behind paying the taxes. 3, you put bike lane and Sumter Boulevard north of I-75 to Tropical, what is part of a State 2 second edition. I want to know, you pay for extra land or you already own it? I tried to ask you that question last time. I didn't get any answer. I got everything else except what I asked. I need the answer. Yes or no. You buy it or you didn't. I need a copy of check that you pay somebody for the property. And I hope that people will go vote in November to put somebody up there who will be for all the taxpayers, not the few.
Thank you, Mr. Lumpert. City Manager, can you please get with, or have someone get with Mr. Lumpert to address specifically the question he was asking in regards to the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, that's the last general public comment I have. These others indicate it's for the item on the Villas of Charleston Park, so we will have those comments when we get to that item here shortly. All right, the next item we have is a presentation, item number 3A. This is US 41 Multi-Use Trails and Amenities Plan. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, or Vice Mayor. Ms. Belia is on her way down to go over. These are the options that you all requested that we look at. So she's going to give you a brief presentation on this, and then we'll be open to some questions.
Thank you. I'm not the only one that's technology challenged.
We never claimed you were alone in that group. Everybody just claimed you were in that group.
I just get the most, okay.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. This is a presentation for the US 41 Multi-Use Trails Amenities. Just a little bit of background. The City of Northport applied for a grant through Sarasota County MPO to design and construct a multimodal feature on US 41 from Sumter Boulevard to Ortiz Boulevard. The project was approved and funded to construct 12 feet wide multi-use trails on both sides of US 41 between Tuscola Boulevard and Ortiz Boulevard. These multi-use trails will replace the existing sidewalks and construct trails where none currently exist within the project limits. The City Commission entered into a maintenance agreement with FDOT regarding the US 41 multi-use trails, Tuscola Boulevard to Ortiz Boulevard, effective upon construction completion. The City Commission then directed staff to prepare a plan to add amenities to this project, including lighting, for the review and approval. The presentation of the City Commission should include estimated costs and potential funding sources. Recommended amenities plan. We're proposing lighting within the US 41 right-of-way that would need to comply with FDOT luminance criteria, such as US 41 pedestrian walkway lights installed on the south side of US 41 between Biscayne and Pan-American Boulevards, and between Bolander and Northport Boulevards. Therefore, proposed amenities plans only added lighting along multi-use trails located within the city property. The spacing of the lights are approximately 100 feet, the same as those on Sumter. Rest areas, including gazebos, benches, bicycle racks, trash receptacles, and landscaping, were strategically placed where the trails are within city-owned property. Recommended amenities plan, design and construction cost of the proposed amenities shown on the plans is estimated at $697,000. Potential funding source is future surtax, and if the City Commission approves of the US 41 multimodal amenities plan, staff will include it in the proposed fiscal year 2024 capital improvements program. Are there any questions?
Commissioner McDowell?
Yes. Thank you for responding to my email. A lot of the questions I'm going to be asking are just for citizens'
Yes, ma'am.
information. So if FDOT's putting in the sidewalk 100% of the cost, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. So what if we do not put in lights? Will FDOT do that?
No, ma'am, they will not.
Is there an agreement between FDOT and the city that we said that we will put in those lights?
Come on, okay.
For the record, Ben Newman, Public Works. No, there's no agreement with the State Department of Transportation on this project to do anything outside of what they're doing with it, which is just constructing the 12-foot wide asphalt multi-use paths on each side of 41. This project was developed at the request of the commission to come up with an amenities plan and to keep the amenities on city property, because then we would not have to comply with the luminance criteria of the State Department of Transportation if we had put them or placed them within the US 41 right-of-way. And the same with the proposed shade structures, bike racks, trash receptacles, and the like. They're all on city-owned property where the trail enters into the city property outside of the US 41 right-of-way.
Thought you said the sidewalks are an FDOT right away.
They meander in and out of the
In
US
and out.
41 right-of-way and onto city property.
So we're only going to be putting the lights in on city property?
Correct.
Correct.
So if it meanders into the FDOT right away, we're not going to put lights in there?
Correct.
We'll have to,
Otherwise, we would have to comply with their luminance criteria, which would be like the spacing of the lights you see on the south side of 41 between Biscayne Drive and Pan American Boulevard, and between Bolander Terrace and Northport Boulevard.
we'll strategically place them so that when they meander into the right-of-way, we will not have a light in those locations. We'll have a good lighting plan, it's just that we have to be careful, because then we're going to be subject to the requirements of FDOT with the luminance.
Okay, can you go back to the last screen, please?
Yes, ma'am. One before that?
Proposed lighting within the, okay. Now I understand, thank you. So even if, when FDOT at some point plans to widen 41, our lights will be safe from that expansion? They won't have to come down, we won't have to redo them or anything?
Correct.
We have city property, city land, tracts of land, where we will be putting the lights and the sidewalk on city property, so it will not be within the DOT right-of-way, that's correct.
Thank you, I'm glad I asked my questions.
That was it?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. I just want to make it clear that the lighting, spacing of the lighting, because just trying to visualize what you're saying, there's going to be adequate light over when it goes onto the city, but then when you meander into the FDOT, it's not going to be lit. But in doing that, it's done strategically, and the spacing ends up being similar to what's on Sumter. So it's adequate light that we're able to put the infrastructure in our right of way, but it's going to be able to illuminate those areas that go into the FDOT area.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, there will be some lighting along those walkways within the US 41 right-of-way, simply from the roadway lighting.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
So this is just a way of strategically doing it so that we're spacing them out as we have on other roadways.
Yes, ma'am.
And know if you remember, Ben, but the funding that we're getting the project through the MPO, I think it was like 3.2 million. Did that include the bus shelters or any of those areas
No.
along that corridor? It's been a while since it was programmed.
When our funding application did include pedestrian walkway lighting, but for whatever reasons, when State Department of Transportation developed the scope of the project, they did not include the lighting. And when we found out and questioned them about it, they said it was too late. The project already had a budget, and they would not be able to include the lighting.
And I think I brought this up in a question before, but is there a separate funding pot that we can go to MPO in regards to safety? I mean, it's kind of silly to even think you can put a trailway on such a busy road like that, and you want people to walk and bicycle and so on, but how are they going to see? So for safety purposes, is there any way that we can look at grant opportunities for that element, even though we are going to do that portion of the project?
Yes, we could put together a pedestrian walkway lighting project and submit that through the MPO process for funding, for federal or state funding, yes.
Okay. And what would you need? Do you need anything from the commission to do that? Or is that just something that if the commission decides that we're looking to do this and program it in the CIP, that would be a natural step that staff would do?
Yes, you could, as a matter of fact, the Technical Advisory Committee, the MPO, just met yesterday morning, and it was the first call for projects for this year's go-around in funding. So we're just getting started and putting together projects, of course, to bring to you probably in February for your endorsement of the prioritization and the list of projects to submit for funding. We can, if you give us the go-ahead today, develop a project application for that.
And with that, would that and could that include the gazebos and other
You wanted to.
amenities along there?
You wanted to.
I mean, we could ask for the whole thing, and then if they want to peel out from it, just the way they did it on the trail
I
itself.
think
they would do
lighting
that.
for safety would be, a much stronger candidate for funding than the rest areas.
Right. Okay. So city manager, would we as a commission have to give direction on this item to say we'd like to work this into the CIP, and then staff would have to go ahead to submit the project?
Yeah, based on the discussion, I was going to ask for one item, but now I'd actually like to ask for two.
Okay,
There
you go.
Since you bring up a valid point. One is, and depending on the answer to the first one, depends whether or not I want a second one. One is, do you want us to move forward with this? And as it states at the end of it, to put it into the next round of the CIP. If that is a yes, then I also would like to know, do you want it added to the MPO for possible funding that way as well? Obviously, if you don't want it added for anything, we're not going to ask the MPO to fund something you don't want to do in the first place. But when we're putting our list together for you to approve for MPO priorities, if you want this on there, now would be a wonderful time to tell us so we make sure that we include it. And we'll break it down for the MPO part of into this much would relate to lighting, this much would relate to rest areas. That way, if they wanted to pick and choose which areas to fund, then we'll give them those options.
Okay. And we don't necessarily have to limit it to the MPO because there are some trails and different
Grants everywhere, but the MPO
grants.
is one that you all approve as a prioritization list.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking that question. We're going to go for grants for anything we can, but that's, as you know, a different process.
I think that was all my questions. Commissioner Luke?
I have a couple of curiosity questions. The height of the lights along the sidewalk there by the library on 41 is shorter than the lights over on Sumter, correct?
No, I believe they're the same height.
I thought it looked a little higher over on Sumter, so I figured the distance between them probably had to do with the wattage because of the height and the radius.
Well, I mean, that would be a good reason for the difference in spacing of the lights, but quite honestly, it's the difference in luminance criteria between the city and the State Department
City
of
and the state,
Transportation.
okay. And my second question is, does anybody know why there was a swatch in front of Lowe's? City manager, did you see there actually has been, did drainage go in along that area of 41? It's going in front of Lowe's, down by Blue Tequila, Old World, there's a swatch. It's about 10 foot wide.
They are starting to excavate for the 12-foot wide asphalt multi-use path.
That's what I kind of thought. Thank you.
Last question, timing on this, because they are coming down all through 41 there. What is the anticipated timing on this? Because I'm sure, would we want to do this concurrently, or would they require that we do this first or last? Do you have any idea on what the parameters would be for that?
Well, we've already started the construction of the multi-use trails, so we couldn't do it before then, and it probably wouldn't be a good idea to try to do it concurrently. We'd just be getting in the way of each other. And so it'd probably be the best if we install the lighting and any other amenities you wish after the trail's done. Then we could, really site those amenities properly as well, without, like I say, getting into conflict interference with the construction of the trails.
I'm just looking at the digging up that they're going to be doing, and then putting everything back together, and then us coming in and having to dig up again.
Well,
If
the
there
lighting
were-
would just be like a trench, like a trench in a conduit for the electrical wiring for the lights, and then it's just the pole bases every so often, depending upon the spacing of the light poles. So it's not like you have a mass excavation for the amenities.
Would they be going as far over as where the electrical conduit would be placed with what it is that they are doing?
We would place the electrical conduit where it would need to be along the trail for the lights.
I understand that, but with what they're doing now, are they going to have that torn up anyway? That far over? Hard to say, or?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't see any kind of benefit in trying to do it concurrently with their project.
Well, the only benefit that I'm thinking of is, number one, it expedites these processes that take a long time. And number two, as far as the mobilization of it, and, it's strategically something that I think the state and many jurisdictions are looking to do, like River Road, for example. And, if there's a way that, as long as the funding is coming, that you can combine and have the one contractor that's doing it while they're already there. So it's just an idea of.
Well, we had discussed that preliminarily with
These
FDOT
costs.
about trying to add on to the existing contract for the trails. They did not seem enthusiastic at all. They thought it would not work well.
Okay. Anything's possible,
Sure.
especially when it might save us money at the local level, so. All right,
One
Commissioner McDowell?
One follow-up question. I'm hearing about having to dig trenches, the electricity for the lights and stuff like that. Have we considered solar lights?
Yeah, we considered solar lights a long time ago. With the lighting we have now on the south side of 41, the original project was to install solar lights, but they came in hot. The construction cost when we bid them was high, so we backtracked and redesigned it to an on-grid system, which really didn't result in any savings because then we had to comply with FDOT's luminance criteria, which we did not know at the time. They did not have any luminance criteria for solar lighting. Now, whether they do now or not, I'm not real sure, but
So if we're putting it in our city right away, the luminous criteria doesn't apply, you said, correct?
FDOT's luminance criteria does not apply.
So When did you say that you explored solar lighting?
It was,
Way back in 2015.
Maybe things have changed.
Oh,
and
sure, yes.
And maybe it is now more cost favor to
Certainly
do
could
it with solar lighting as opposed to the labor of digging trenches, pouring the concrete, all that kind of stuff, paying for the light bill that's going to also incur. So maybe we could also have a comparison with today's numbers?
Certainly do that, yes.
Okay,
I mean, there still is a battery life for the solar.
of course.
the issue came back in the 2015 issue, the actual cost for the lights. And due to the latest technology in light bulbs, is, anybody that's bought a light bulb recently knows they use significantly less electricity. The cost for the solar compared to, the initial cost for the solar compared to cost for the electric light bulbs, which now have significantly lower ongoing electric costs, made using the old, or the most recent electric light bulbs the financially better option. The solar panels were so expensive and they didn't have a long shelf life, but we can certainly look into it for the new products, see if anything's changed.
Products change, costs change, especially with the
have.
way that technology is improving considerably with solar lighting.
Yeah, we
So-
ran into a few hurdles that didn't make sense to try to overcome for the solar ones, but
It'd be nice just to revisit it. I mean, here it is 3 years later, maybe it is
Yep.
more cost savings at this point. So,
All right, so I have no other questions. So, City Manager, I heard that you are looking for some direction. And obviously, there's two different components of this. One is, does the commission want to include this multi-use trails amenities plan to include in the capital improvement program? And the other is whether or not we want to include this as a project to be submitted to the MPO for funding.
need to make a motion, or do you want to do it by consensus?
By motion would be preferred.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to, I don't know who has the gavel, sorry.
She still has it until she turns it over.
Oh, you can have it
But I
anytime
mean,
you
I'm
want.
ready, I'm settled now.
You're settled? Okay.
She was just being kind and
Yeah.
waiting.
I'll make a
Ready?
motion to,
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve this lighting amenity project to be added into the CIP for, I think you said fiscal year 2020. I'll do different motions.
It would be for between 20 and 24 in that time frame. If you have a specific year you want it included, what the presentation said it would be in the upcoming 5-year CIP. If you want it in a specific year, we do need to know that as well.
Okay.
We didn't specify a year though. We just specified a 5-year plan.
I think come budget time, maybe we can specify a year. So I'll make the motion to be for fiscal year 2020 to 2024 for the CIP project.
Do we have a second?
You're going to be two motions?
I'm going to make
instead
different
of one?
motions, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll second that.
All right, so it's been moved by Commissioner McDowell to include the amenities into the CIP plan for the 2020 to 2024 years. Seconded by Commissioner Luke. Anything to that?
No, ma'am?
Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Oh, guess what? My thing is not working. Yeah, I have nothing. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, chair votes aye.
It was working. I'm just
It was
saying.
working perfectly till you said that.
Covered the issue with the new
You
system.
have figured it out now, right?
And just for the record, the mayor arrived 4:37.
I'll make another motion, Mayor,
Go right ahead.
to have the city manager and staff make this US 41 sidewalk project a priority for the MPO for possible grants and funding.
Including other funding, not just MPO? Or you?
For grants and funding.
So you want it submitted to the MPO as a project for funding?
I thought that's what I
Yeah, it's
said.
part of all the grant searching projects.
I'm just making sure you're not just saying MPO, but other. Okay,
MPO,
second.
grants and funding.
Okay. Second.
It's like 3.
Okay, so it's been moved by Commissioner McDowell to, as stated, seconded by Commissioner Luke. All those, is there anything to that?
No.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote. Hopefully it works. It does.
I've got one more.
Okay.
I don't know if you need a motion for the solar lights versus traditional lighting. Do you want a motion, City Manager?
No, we'll bring you both options.
Thank you.
Anything else, folks, on this item? No? Okay, then we are completed with that one. Thank you all for allowing me to be late. Today just did not go well. Okay, we're moving on to 4A, which is the secondary emergency access road for the Villas of Charleston Park subdivision. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We are presenting you with 2 options today. There has been significant questions back and forth. I believe we have a significant room full of people who would all like to give public comment. Some of those questions that we've been presented with actually will require further information, so my suggestion is that we hear the 2 options that staff prepared, we hear the public comment, and take the opportunity to investigate items that need to be looked in further so we can take all of it together and then bring you back a comprehensive list of options that I don't believe we're going to be, based on the questions that have come up, able to make a final decision on this today.
Thank you.
Can I just, before we get into the, well, let's go ahead and do the presentation. Go ahead.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. This is for discussion and possible action regarding the secondary emergency access road. Excuse me.
Julie, hold on. Someone's buying dinner. Who is it? Dinner. What's anybody want? Chicken? Chinese? Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Okay. Discussion, possible action with respect to the secondary emergency access road for the Villas of Charleston Park. On June the 17th of 2003, the City of Northport Planning and Zoning Department issued a development order for a preliminary subdivision plan for the Villas of Charleston Park. Condition of approval number 6 states, the applicant shall work with the city and the school board to execute an agreement to construct a 2-lane section of Springhaven Drive, including sidewalks and a bike path or bike lanes from Pan American Boulevard to Price Boulevard prior to the construction of Phase 2. Based on the transportation analysis, 50% of the applicant's impact fees may be dedicated to the construction of Springhaven Drive. The portion of Springhaven Drive from the easterly property line at Pan American Boulevard to the westerly property line, just east of the drainage right-of-way, west of the former Rycroft Street, is a site-related improvement. On July 14, 2003, the City of Northport Planning and Zoning Department issued a development order for a final subdivision plan and plat review for Phase 1 of the Villas of Charleston Park. Condition of approval number 2 states, the developer shall complete an agreement concerning the construction of Springhaven Drive pursuant to Chapter 136.71. The developer's contribution shall include dedication of transportation impact fees toward the accomplishment of the construction of the road. The Utilities Department shall be included in the crafting of the agreement to ensure coordination with the construction of utilities concurrent with construction of the road, and construction of the road shall commence in fiscal year 2005-2006. During the development process for the Villas of Charleston Park subdivision, the Fire Rescue District at that time had required a secondary emergency access road. The developer at that time had proposed to use the Springhaven Drive right-of-way, which was a dirt road, as a secondary means of access. And this, of course, was agreed upon and approved. However, years later, on May the 3rd of this year, 2018, Commission voted not to proceed with the construction of Springhaven Drive Extension Project. Since that time, staff was requested, Public Works and Fire and Police, and Planning Division of Neighborhood Development Services, that we all work together to try to look at a couple options to facilitate the secondary emergency access roadway. We subsequently met and we reviewed various options, and we came up with 2 of them. The first one was that Public Works Department could utilize the in-house staff to construct a dirt roadway. However, we felt like it had to be made a little bit more of an improvement because, as you know, we get a lot of rains here in the city of Northport, and that area actually retains a lot of water. So we decided to include some shell or 57 stone material on that roadway. And then in addition, we'd have to have some type of drainage, and that would, of course, trigger applying for an exemption for a Southwest Florida Water Management District permit. Along with that, we would make sure that the road was blocked off so that we would not have other motorists other than emergency crews and other vehicles and pedestrians and so forth utilizing that area. So under option 1, we would propose either the shell or actually 57 stone or crushed concrete to have a 1,200-foot roadway by 10 feet wide. And we came up with some costs, and annually it's going to be about $3,200 for us to maintain that road. Because what it's going to need to happen is we have to make sure that as rain washes the whatever material we use away, we need to replace it. In addition, there's going to have to be some law enforcement. We would put up signs making sure the public is aware they are not authorized to use that roadway, that only it's for emergency use purposes. But any, if we would, signs would be missing or so forth, we have to replace them along with police enforcement. The second option that we looked at was to have a secondary emergency access road at a different location. So what we would do is we would no longer have the area which is now, of course, grown up with very high grass because nothing has been done with that roadway in a long time. And we would choose an area at a different location to have the secondary access. And that, of course, would be a more permanent roadway that we would have paved. And currently there's a lot number 89, which is vacant there. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac by Shenandoah Street. So what we would do is we would take that cul-de-sac and we would pave it out so that we'd be connecting to the intersection of Grand Cypress Boulevard. That, however, would necessitate the relocation of the gate where it currently is, and we would relocate it to this location in option number 2. So those are the two options that we looked at. And are there any questions?
I'm sure there are. Let's go ahead and get the public comment first. We only have 3 cards, so just so you know, if anyone has any public comment, go ahead and fill out one of these cards up there and give it to the officer. The first one is Marty Singer. If you'll come up and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Marty Singer. I'm the president of the Villas of Charleston Park Association. We're a homeowners association having 185 owners, and we are opposed to any attempt to relocate our newly installed emergency access gate. Since we have already provided each of the commissioners with information regarding the choices that are being presented, I won't bore you with repetition of those details. What I want to address is the impact your decision can have on 2 Northport communities, the Villas, which I represent, and our neighbors in the Jockey Club. For the Villas, option 1 is to repair a portion of Springhaven Drive and keep our new emergency gate exactly where it is. The alternative, option 2, has not yet calculated the cost to the city nor determined whether or not the homeowners at the villas would be forced to assume any of these costs. We would, however, be forced to forfeit a portion of our green space and common areas, destroy several well-established trees, and change the appearance of our community. For over 100 residents of Jockey Club, Option 2 turns a quiet cul-de-sac on Shenandoah Street into a potential thoroughfare. Worse yet, we've become aware that the only road to provide egress from Shenandoah Street, along with 5 other streets in the Jockey Club, is Woods Lane, a privately owned strip of land. Should Woods Lane become unusable, then all of the Jockey Club homes are trapped. How can the city propose to make this route the emergency exit for our villas if the city doesn't even own the only road out? For all of the reasons above, we stated in our email and the information we just presented, we believe the only viable, safe, economical option without detrimental impact on 2 communities is option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is, So let's just be clear. No clapping, no yelling, no screaming, none of that craziness. There's a certain standard of decorum here. Let's pretend we're in court where you wouldn't do that. And if it continues, I will shut it down. So next up is Bob Albee.
For the record, name is Bob Albee, resident at Villas at Charleston Park. I'm going to take a little different tactic, but using the Spring Haven and the Villas at Charleston Park gate issue as examples, city staff, in my opinion, missed 2 opportunities to build trust and goodwill with 2 segments of our community. Instead, they reinforced an apparent systemic problem, decision-making in a vacuum. Suggestion to improve your process, which would reduce stress, conflict, and maybe even develop consensus before moving forward on a project. Proactively involve all stakeholders early in the planning process, well before hearings, especially for those matters that are narrowly focused, affecting individual neighborhoods, again, like Spring Haven Drive and the gate issue. And I strongly support what Mr. Singer has offered as comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bob Rinaldi. Was I close? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Bob Rinaldi. I live on Grand Cypress Boulevard. I've been a resident.
Can you stand right there in front of that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been a resident there for 14 years. Mr. Ships told me that Spring Haven was going to be a road with access to Price. Wonderful idea, I thought. Now, 14 years later, just like Price Boulevard, we're still talking about it. Now, give me a break. Now, we need a road out there. We don't want a gravel thing. We need at least put a road from the gate to Butler Park, so when my grandkids come in town, we can get on a bicycle and ride to Butler Park. Is that such a difficult thing? Does it have to be a $5 million gold-plated road that I heard was being proposed? I don't think so. I don't think anybody out there wants it. But just a 2-lane road like Price Boulevard or Appomattox or, Pan American, don't have to put a sidewalk in. You have to put a sidewalk in, but you don't need all that. But a gravel road, come on. And an emergency exit only? The police would, or the fire department and everybody else would have much better access on at least an asphalt road. So Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone asking for questions. Anyone? You have questions? We all have questions. Can I just ask a clarifying question? Because I don't see anybody's lights on here. First and foremost, I thought when we discussed this, and maybe maybe I'm getting the issues confused. I thought we had talked about finding a way to bridge the gap between Jockey Club and that road. And not necessarily looking at the emergency exit for Charleston Park. It was more of another access point from Jockey Club. Am I like hallucinating, or because it's a possibility? I'm getting old.
Good. I recall the meeting, and we did have some folks from the Jockey Club here that evening. So we did discuss trying to work another exit for them.
Right.
Especially because of Wood Lane. We did not really discuss the villas, but
No.
it needed to be addressed because they do need that emergency exit. So though it wasn't discussed previously, it needs to be addressed.
No, I get that. I get that. I'm just trying to determine whether this discussion should almost be consecutive with it, because the way I'm looking at this map where the blue waterway is, it almost seems like that would be the location to put something so it creates an access point to Jockey Club.
Where did you say? Where did you say?
It's pretty much at the end of Charleston Park.
Okay.
Just look at the very end. Because we had talked about the Jockey Club ending. Remember that?
I believe city
So-
manager said there were other options coming up. We were just going to have the presentation and listen to public comment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the-
Okay, so,
You know, the development order, some questions in regards to that. So there's a lot of questions.
okay, the other thing is that this was basically planned since 2003. So,
Springhaven was.
well, Springhaven was supposed to be done and that got nixed. But this particular portion was going to become part of another access out, because every single community development that we did had two entrances and accesses. Everything. So this was ultimately supposed to be that secondary access, but as the last person who spoke, it's not supposed to be a gravel road, it's supposed to be an actual road. So, I'm not sure how we go about addressing that.
There
By the
are,
way, $5 million is how much a road is these days.
well,
Just is.
there's a lot, obviously, that was said, and we've had countless meetings on Springhaven as a whole.
Yeah.
And the last decision that was made was to not do it. And we know that there are multiple sides to this story. We've had entities come in that want this road not done. Obviously, we have many people here today that want this road done. Trying to balance all of those is always an interesting process. Right now, we have, the last direction we were given is to not put in Springhaven as a road.
Right.
That was made earlier this year or late last year, whichever it was. It's, in the not too distant past, the decision was made not to do Springhaven. That resulted in where we are today of what to do as a result of that. The statement of doing it in a vacuum, I do have a little concern with that, simply because we've had, I can't even tell you how many meetings, public meetings, it's been mentioned at other meetings as well that we've had, that the commission is looking at Springhaven. So there has been, while we didn't send out mailers to everybody, we don't send out mailers on any other agenda item either, there has been multiple public meetings over Springhaven. And now there's meetings because Springhaven is not being done. As far as a secondary access for the jockey club that is being looked at as part of the mobility, the citywide mobility that was discussed, Ms. Belia can speak to that in a minute if you'd like. Whether or not you want to pave this section, bring out the emergency access for Charleston Villas or not, that is one of the options that is being proposed of what you would like to do based on the decision not to do Spring Haven. Because keep in mind, that's how we got to this point. Decided not to do Spring Haven. There's questions about the development order. How did we get to this point? What was required? Should a development order have been accepted on a road that may or may not happen, but that certainly wasn't there at the time? Those are the parts of the reasons I'm suggesting that we get a bunch of input today and then bring you back more information. But the fact of the matter is, a development order was issued for a road that didn't exist. And doesn't exist to this day. Whether a developer said that that road was going to be there or not, the developer wasn't planning to build it, so that was a statement I can't do anything about. The developer's no longer around. So statements made by developers of what they believe the city will or will not do.
No, but at the time, we had already done
road that's
so
been
much
planned
work
for-
on it. It was, I mean, I would.
It was going to
Yeah,
happen, I get that. And up until earlier this year, that road was going to happen, it was just a matter of when. When we were planning to move forward and actually build the road, we got a whole bunch more public input of reasons not to put that road in. The project has changed numerous times, gone from a simple two-lane road to, do we want a wildlife corridor in there? Do we want a road at all? And ultimately, the decision we got was, don't put a road in.
Also more than double the price.
Yeah.
Because of the Swift mud and other.
The factors have taken that road from roughly a $2 million road to now over a $5 million road. And if we continue to make changes to it, it will become an even more expensive road.
That's a fact.
And I'll tell you, this is a perfect example of public input. This place was filled to the rim to not put in Spring Haven. Not one person got up there and said, we need that road. Everyone said no that was in this room, along with emails. I got tons of emails. So got to have this public input.
This commission, if nothing else, certainly always takes public input. And you know, I want to say you as a body make every opportunity for the public to provide input, whether or not that's taken advantage of. You know, we all, and I will agree with you, it's human nature. We only come when we have an issue. Not when we typically support something, we come more against something. And that's what we had. We did have multiple meetings packed, and yes, everybody was saying not to do the road.
But we're where we're at now. So now we got to deal with today.
Yep, and that is where we are today, and that's what we're looking to move forward with, of why we brought you an agenda item. An issue was raised to us. What about that section? What would you like to do? We're looking for input before we're giving you two options, knowing that there's more that we can come up with. We want to hear what the public here today has to say. We want to hear what you all have to say, and then we can bring you more options after also investigating some other things that have come up as a result of this.
That's smart.
Excellent. We have some questions. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, especially in looking at some of the documentation, which there's more to come, at the time that Spring Haven came about, one of the ways that was initiated was because of the desire from the Jockey Club that they didn't want that crossover. So they wanted that separate. It's in when you read the history on this thing as to how did Spring
I was
Haven.
there.
Okay, I'm going by what's in writing here.
Okay, well, that's
So,
not necessarily true, so.
But because I was trying to figure out how did that all come about. But that's part of it. So I think it's very important to, as we gather all of the documentation, answer a lot of the unanswered questions, that we also get in the room these two communities that
Definitely.
are together. And because I think in isolation, each has an issue. And so is there a common resolve to it? And I think there very well could be. but we don't want to spin our wheels and go down a certain path only to have to go back and then, do something different when there may be a solution that we can address for both of these communities. I mean, the only thing that separates them is really there is a wall there, I understand that, but they are two different communities. So, City Manager, is that a possibility for us to do to get all those stakeholders together from both communities to be able to look at this? And in the meantime, we'll be able to get some of these answers and some of the documents to know where we're starting from.
I think the two boards sitting down with staff would be an excellent idea.
I think my opinion is there's a lot of pieces of information, which is again why I said that we need to bring this back to you all in the future. I think there's a lot that can be done. We have a great opportunity here of bringing not only these two communities, but coming up with solutions that will work for the communities as well as the people who didn't want the road to get there. Because whatever our solution ends up being needs to address all of the issues. Otherwise, we're going to get back into a situation where we have another group of people who is against it and of filled chambers of, well, you all said you weren't going to do something, and now all of a sudden you're changing your mind.
Exactly.
And so in answer to your question, I believe yes, but I think the party's a little bigger than what you've stated, and I want to make that my opinion is that's what we should do, is invite everybody, all the stakeholders.
Commissioner McDowell. I'm sorry, are you done, Vice Mayor?
I can't get past the fact that the developer should have completed an agreement concerning the construction of Spring Haven. Nobody has talked about that agreement. Was there ever an agreement?
That's part of what we need to look into. I wasn't here in 2003. I'm not trying to pass that along, but the fact of the matter is, this is some of the information and questions that have come up as a result of this that I believe needs more research.
What was the question?
So if you look at the legislative text, if you look at the number 2, it says the developer shall complete an agreement concerning the construction of Spring Haven Drive pursuant to Chapter 13671. The developer's contribution shall include dedication of transportation impact fees towards the accomplishment of the completion of the road. When I read that, that wasn't even discussed when we were talking initially about Spring Haven being developed. They're supposed to help pay for that. That was not even part of the discussion, so I am really glad that we're not doing Spring Haven now.
Well, you have to remember that first and foremost, Village of Charleston Park was not completed at the time that this all took place. That's number one. It didn't get completed until many, many years later after Mr. Ships had left. So all of that impact fee money has already gone into that bank account. And so when we talked about Spring Haven, essentially we were using that impact money to do Spring Haven.
That's not what the city manager
I'm
told me when I
not
asked
really
him.
sure that that's an accurate statement. I believe it's more so the developer went bankrupt.
Yes.
And the property was
Bank owned.
bank owned.
Right.
Ultimately, the Villas of Charleston Park became an HOA and homes were built. I know I'm oversimplifying the process, but the developer was gone. So the developer that would have entered into that agreement became bankrupt and the agreement no longer exists. If they're not around and it doesn't survive bankruptcy, then
withdraw from.
I can't get something from somebody that's not here.
No, but all those new homes put into
They
that
then would have paid
fee.
impact fees.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that they
Correct.
paid the impact fees. Those impact fees would go towards Spring Haven. So
Yeah, and
essentially,
that's
it's
to
the
say-
same thing. You're just gonna give them impact fee credit, therefore it's the same thing.
And yes, all the homes in there did pay impact fees when
Right.
they were built. There is a distinction between whether or not a developer is going to build a road to get credits or whether homeowners are going to pay impact fees that, yes, go into not just a specific project, but go into impact fees for the city. Which is why I think that there's a difference here, and that's, I believe, an important difference to point out, is there wasn't a developer that built a road. There were impact fees paid by individual builders or homeowners, and those went into the transportation impact fees that have been used for a variety of things, specifically the last one being the widening of Sumter.
And if I remember correctly, the whole idea of that road was actually because of our corridor study, determining ways that we could create more east-west types of routes.
Trying to relieve stress off price.
And trying to relieve the stress off of price. It had nothing to do with anything other than that. And yes, this was an emergency access road, but ultimately we were going to utilize those impact fee credits in order to actually build it, because the developer could build it less expensive than the city, essentially. But I thought that he lost the one up on 41 to the bank, but I thought he sold this one. Does anyone remember that? Someone was here for 20-something years ago. I thought he.
Documents
Yeah.
I specifically was reading about actually stated that, and may have been one of the emails from somebody, is that, no, this actually didn't or wasn't sold off. The homeowners ended up taking it over.
Well, I mean, there was always a plan for homeowner association. I'm just, if I remember correctly, they sold it to a different builder.
I think Lennar took over this.
And it wasn't, this one didn't go to the bank, but the one on 41 did, if I remember correctly. But, okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner McDowell, I just want to get some things clarified.
So maybe when you're coming back with more information, there might be a little bit of a history lesson that'll be given as far as the developer going bankrupt, who took ownership, who was responsible. And because the developer went bankrupt, does that mean that the development order goes away also? That's a question I would have, because this development order states certain criteria and certain conditions for that development. Just because he went bankrupt, does that mean the development order, poof, disappears? Or does it have to get followed?
We'll bring that as information as well.
I'd say the question is, does it carry over with the new ownership?
Right.
Really? Imagine it should go with the property versus the development.
Again,
We'll have to.
we'll get the legal answer to that. My belief would be that the development order would follow the property.
Okay, so I'm going to take a different route. We have many developments in the city of Northport that have only single access. One of them we just approved this year for Candido Apartments has a single access. So I'm trying to understand the concern of an emergency access necessity for the development for Charleston Villas when the other Charleston Park doesn't have an emergency access.
Okay.
Is that true, Miss Julie? Because I know in your email, and I just gave it a cursory glance because I got it too late, something about there is no?
No, there is. Yes, ma'am, there is.
On Greendale.
Greendale Road
But it's
was
a dirt
renamed
road.
Charleston Park Drive.
It's a dirt road. Isn't that a
Charleston
dirt
Park
road?
Drive is a dirt road?
No.
No.
The-
Charleston Park is paved road. The fire department, when we have a development process, when they go through the staff development review process, they will review the plans for new subdivisions, and they are the ones, and it's right in the development order for Charleston Park, when an emergency road, access road, secondary access road is required. So they wanted Greendale Road to be designated as that emergency road, secondary access, and they subsequently renamed it to Charleston Park Drive. And I attached the development order. It's right out of the development order, those requirements.
Okay, because I'm looking at the little map that was provided in the backup, and I can see where Charleston Road comes down and curves, and then there's a little paved road to go to the two houses closest to the drainage ditch, but then going over the drainage ditch, it doesn't look like a road, it looks like a dirt.
Well, Charleston Park Drive is a paved roadway.
And that,
Maybe just the aerial, the way it looks, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, Charleston Park is.
Charleston Park is definitely,
But then you s-
Greendale,
right,
it looks like
Greendale
it dead
Road
ends.
Dead ends.
It looks
Yes.
like it dead
Yes.
ends
Yes.
at the drainage ditch.
No.
So is
Yeah, that's
there
what
a
she's saying,
road
there's not a
going
road.
over the drainage ditch is my question to create that secondary access. Would you like to see the map and what I'm talking about?
Sure. I
May I,
probably
Mayor?
have it right here.
I'm trying to find out what you're talking about.
It's right here.
See, here's Charleston Park, here's the little road, there's the drainage ditch, dirt, and then there's the road. This is what I'm questioning. Is this a functioning secondary emergency access? Because it looks like dirt compared to this.
That's what's designated. I mean, that's what they
Can't
designate.
we
That's
can't
what they
hear.
used, and they're almost built out.
Yeah, we need that all on the record, folks, so go ahead and look at the map if you can answer the question.
Maybe the city manager, maybe the fire department can give us the answer if it's a functioning emergency road or is it a wannabe emergency road access. I don't know what else to explain it.
Katie?
The fire chief will be right down to answer that. I believe he's actually trying to look it up himself.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it
camera?
on my aerial.
If you bring up the big pictures that were provided by
Well, I
staff.
really just wanted to look at the most recent aerial through Google versus that, because I don't know when that was taken.
This is all I've got. This was provided to us.
Okay. American. Doesn't look like it's completed.
Nope.
Although I guess for an emergency purpose you could, but that looks like
No, it's-
a wall there.
Yeah, thank you.
It does look like a wall, don't it?
It sure does.
I didn't notice that.
Thank you.
Not even notice that. Now I gotta get a better look.
Hence my question.
Well, I can tell you there's supposed to be a second access.
Thank you.
We do have a lot of areas throughout the city that are looped kind of like that, and there's only one way in, one way out.
Like
Exactly.
what?
There are a lot of them.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. I did a little, very quick research. Candido Apartments, Charleston Park, which we're talking about.
Candido Apartments hasn't been built yet, right?
I know, but there's only going to be one access. We approved it with one access. Yes, we did. Grand Court Apartments has only one access. Cedar Grove, I can only find one access. There may be more, but it's kind of hard to see. Riley Chase, the old Riley Chase, which is now called Lakes of Northport, has only one access. I didn't see a second one. So this will probably be something we're going to need to research too about these secondary accesses if they're functioning.
It's all part of the it's all part of the comp plan, all part of your ULDC. It's been in the laws since the beginning of
So
time.
the reason why I'm asking this is we're concerned about this secondary emergency access when there are many others that don't have it or are supposed to have it and they're not functioning.
Can we get an answer to this one?
We're trying to look for where you showed us. Was it the R ditch between Jasmine Way? Is that where you showed? I'm not
Look
sure where you
at,
showed.
You want me to come back down?
Charleston
Would you
Park
mind?
Drive.
I want to make sure I'm looking at what you're asking. That's all I'm doing.
Yes, Jasmine Way.
Google map, it looks like there's a wall there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a great time. Oh, yeah, you got it. So we can. Yes, that's the one, okay.
That's an R ditch and there's a wall there.
Exactly, so they're
See
saying
that
this
well
is a
on Google
secondary
Earth.
Yeah,
emergency.
that's why I pulled up Google Earth, because I knew it would be most
Conversation's
up.
going on.
But
I
there's
can't-
no
I can't
secondary.
No, and I think that's unfortunately after the development order when they.
Okay, can you get that all on the record, please?
Okay, Chief Titus will provide that answer as far as what happened between the development order and when the development was actually constructed, the roadways.
So some of this in history, I think, through transition of administration, I'm going to give the best answer that I can give that I am aware of. But my understanding is this property developed. So in the original development orders, yes, there was a requirement. Unified Land Development Code, which I can pull up the language, which shows and requires the 2 accesses. So that was the initial discussion. At some point in time, when this neighborhood went through financial times, I'm not sure if it was a bankruptcy or whatever, so I want to be careful how I use that terminology. It was always maintained and understood that that emergency access on Spring Haven would be there. And the concession, my recollection, and again, I was in a different position than I am now, but my recollection hearing through discussions was that the fire department conceded and kind of said, okay, we can live with it the way that it is now until Spring Haven Drive goes through. That would give us secondary access to that neighborhood. We're not thrilled about it, but we were trying to, again, we always want to try and be good partners in the community, not overburden, and we said if that's, you know, maintained, we can have access in there. There was always that discussion of that road going through. When the discussion of the road not going through anymore occurred, that's kind of what has brought all this up to light again in discussion.
Okay, but the question is to the current Charleston Park area that has been developed since 2009, I want to say, east side of Pan American Boulevard, was supposed to have 2 access points, has 1, and the second seems to be walled off.
I have to pull that language, but I believe that was part of the same discussion. So that secondary access point was supposed to be constructed and completed before the end of phase 2. And
Yes.
somewhere in that time period, it went.
That's correct.
So the city just didn't keep up with them. That's what it sounds like.
Well, I'm not sure there was anything, I guess the city could have filed a lawsuit or something at that point, but yeah, there wasn't I don't know that there was anything.
Because phase 2 definitely started after this phase 1 was completed. Okay, so I hope you got some clarification.
Yep. My point being is that there's many places in the city of Northport that has subdivisions, larger subdivisions and smaller, that don't have a secondary access. And I'm trying to understand the concern for this secondary access when there already is access for the emergency vehicles through the main gate. Right?
Yes. Go ahead.
So the fire marshal's not here right now. One of the things that I will tell you, and one of the things that we're discovering throughout the city is there are some things that have gone through. There wasn't in the past some, I think, great communication between fire and neighborhood development. When certain things came through, they didn't necessarily go for fire review, and so there were things that we weren't aware of. And there's areas of the ULDC that are very specific to fire, and there's areas of the ULDC that are very specific to building. We've identified a lot of those things. The communication is great now, but going backwards, there are things that have gotten through the system that should not have been approved the way that they were. We are working with some of the developers. As a matter of fact, some of the developments as recent as West Villages, there's some things that were constructed in there that don't meet everything in the ULDC. For the reasons of when they went through the building department, it met all of their stuff, and they said, yeah, it's okay. They didn't think they had any reason to send it to fire. Well, when you talk something as simply as the width of a road, with the road for in ULDC in the fire section says it needs to be this wide. Well, that didn't trigger some things. So that communication is there. We're going back and trying to address those things. We're trying to do that in the most economic manner possible and still be good partners in the community without going and saying, okay, you need to tear up every road. Obviously, that's not a realistic option. So when you say that there are some developments in the city that don't have 2 emergency accesses, some of those were built before the ULDC went into place. There are some that were built since. It's because it either did not go through, either we did not have a presence at SDR, or it wasn't sent to us. And unfortunately, at this point, I wish I could go back and fix some of those things. But
many of our departments, not quite.
And I can tell you that there is a reason why we require it. I mean,
absolutely.
And it is one of those worst case scenario things. But when we have the ability to do it, we're this close with this community. If something were to happen at the front entrance to this community and we weren't able to evacuate them out of another area, again, that worst case scenario can be catastrophic. And so these are the things we look at. Unfortunately,
I just want to notate that in Raleigh Chase, New, whatever they're calling themselves these days,
North Lakes.
Lakes of Northport, you can see where that secondary emergency access was supposed to be off Sycamore. It seems to me like this was one of those deals where nobody checked to make sure these things were accomplished. I really do, because you can see as clear as day where it was. So,
And sometimes these things are things that are agreed at in the beginning, and they are maintained throughout, and then once our presence is not there anymore, those things are
Disappears.
closed up. A wall gets put in, the roadway gets closed.
Exactly.
right, but why get a CO if you're not gonna make sure those things are complied with?
Absolutely.
So, but I have way more
So,
issues with that.
moving past this, because this is something that we've identified now, based on this conversation, brings me to a whole new subject, and that's the Candido Apartments, which is not built, but it was approved with only one access. And that pained me at the time, and that's what brought this to light, was the Candido Apartments, because it had only been approved with one, and that there's only one here now, and they're requesting a second.
And if I can speak to that, I remember I was at the podium before and discussed that. So the previous fire marshal approved it when we found out it came back through us, and we appreciate you asking the question. What we did, again, trying to be a good partner, was we tried to expand those areas from the entrance. We tried to widen it, and we did some things that were agreed to make it as safe as possible that it could be with a singular entrance without having to cost a ton of money, without having to do a dramatic and drastic change.
While I appreciate wanting to work with partners and being good partners and working together, safety is paramount. And if the fire marshal of the state or whoever is everybody's big boss says that there has to be 2 entrances, you can't deviate from that. And that's just my opinion on it. So as far as what else can be done, I'd also, if we're going to have this secondary entrance with the dirt road, I think there needs to be a maintenance agreement between them and us, and not just fully costed to the citizens of Northport paying for it. That maybe there can be some kind of a split cost for it. I just kind of would like to see other options than just solely on the backs of the taxpayers as a whole.
Is that property ours?
What property?
The property that's now currently a gravel road?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Springhaven Drive is a public right-of-way, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's no other public purpose except for the benefit of the Charleston Park Villas.
I disagree with that. I still think that's where a jockey club will be eventually coming out.
That'll be part of the conversation. If the Villas of Charleston Park are going to want to have it a full access, or if it's just going to be an emergency access. That's all part of the bigger conversation.
I gotcha. Okay, are you finished with your question?
I think I've taken up enough time.
Commissioner Hanks, and then I'll get to Vice Mayor.
I just got one question. It's not exactly this topic, but I would like to see, if you guys don't mind, do we have a process of flow between our departments? And if so, do we have that a written process, a documented process, that if something goes into our,
SDR, yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd like to see, because it doesn't sound like we follow the process per se, otherwise we wouldn't be in a position like this. And I hear it quite a bit, you know, that, well, it didn't get to here, well, it didn't do that, it skipped me. So I'd like to see that process, written process, checklist. I'd like to see the checks every time it goes through. I mean, I don't want to see every time. I would like to see, you know, like when it goes through, you know, you got to have a little, all right, we've done it, now this goes over here to the fire department. They've done it, this goes over here. And maybe even with a time frame of flow, you know, nothing here should take longer than 5 days to go through the process. I'm saying obviously that,
I get what you
you
mean.
know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but this way we can hold these people, you know, we can hold people accountable for making sure that they're doing the things they're supposed to do in a timely manner, so that he's not being called up if it hadn't been brought to him, or so that they're not being called up if it hadn't been brought to them. You know, we can say, all right, well, listen, the last check was right here. Why did you not move this on to the next station? You know what I mean?
I do, yes. I'll let the fire chief address in a second, but we do have the staff development review process. It has been around for a long time. It was not being followed completely to where it is obvious. And obviously, because of the obviousness of that nature and the fact that it should be followed, New fire chief and new fire marshal have been more involved all along the process. They've been working with our neighborhood development services department, as well as all of the departments, because they are all invited to this. The system was broken, and we have been working to get it fixed to ensure that the right people are in the right rooms at the right times and throughout the entire process. Our new fire marshal is very much involved. The fire department and all of the departments are coming together, working on these processes. Some of these are very old. This one, as you can see, the agreement's from back in 2003. But going forward, yes.
But as he said, we still have issues even recently.
Yep.
If you wouldn't mind, could you send me, I don't know if the others want it, I would like to just be able to read through that and just see what that process is and see how it flows. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, again, there's supposed to be that final permit, that final review.
You're looking, every
prior to
checkbox has
getting
been
that
checked.
CO, and all those checklists are supposed to be done, and so there was a failure in the system somewhere.
There has been a breakdown in multiple of those systems.
Well-
And we have a new environment, we have new staff.
I
and
agree.
I'm trusting that they are implementing and putting these processes in place so these checklists can be done, as we've seen it throughout. We've discussed this before, too, making sure those systems and those checklists are done.
Okay, Vice Mayor, and let's put our lights on.
I have my light.
No, I know.
Oh. I did it this time, it worked.
So
It
I
worked.
followed you.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so, I think what's very important, and really wish that this discovery happened quite a while ago, but in looking at the development order and some of these documents, it seems apparent that there had been a lot of emphasis on the whole reason for Springhaven was because of Price Boulevard. And reading through this, that's not the case. And so, to me, what glares out is more about public safety, about the safety, and I think it brings a whole new perspective to this. So I just wanted to add that I think when this information comes back, the transportation analysis and those different reports and stuff is very important to be a part of that, because it seems to me that, like I said, it's really not having much to do with anything with Price Boulevard.
Right, I was
But more
understanding that is more of a convenience road, and as a convenience road, I was against with what we were
Exactly.
facing. However, if it's this is a different situation that I'm seeing here.
And particularly because, like I said, of the Jockey Club neighborhood, that they wanted that separation, and this was the alternative. That's just such an important piece of this, and I can certainly understand the residents there being concerned and having the
I would,
concerns.
and I'm gonna jump in again, Commissioner Luke, and just say, we need to have those meetings, because the tapes of those meetings where that discussion on Springhaven took place, as well as Villas of Charleston Park, because I'm going to tell you that the minutes did not always reflect what the intent and the actual conversation was. I
No,
can
this
tell
is
you
the
that for a
narrative.
fact.
This is the narrative of the intent from the developer and the reasons why this second access was proposed to be the outlet to Pan American and Springhaven. So that's from a narrative, it's not from the minutes, because I know sometimes the minutes don't capture
Even the
all.
narrative from one side will be skewed,
Mhm.
is what I'm trying to get at.
Gotcha.
So, Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, I want to thank Commissioner Hanks about the bringing up the SDR. And I know some of these projects can take many years, and during those many years, the players change. But I think when it comes to something as super important as a secondary access, that in the future, any developments, that those secondary accesses have to be built prior to the first CO. You know, when they're going in and building a road, that secondary access should be part of that building of those roads, and it should be first on the list, not, oh, we'll check when everything is done 15 years later. It's just something that I really would like to see happening for developments here on out, and I will be paying close particular attention to these developments, making sure that there are the 2 required entrances per our ULDC for these developments, and not working around and being good partners. There's a time to be good partners, and there's a time that it's going to come back and bite you in the hiney. And here we are 15 years later biting us in the hiney.
Mayor, if I can say something, I'd like to make a point on something. The developer for Charleston Park, the Charleston Park Drive within their development, they actually did develop the whole thing.
Right.
The other portion of Greenwood that separate, or Greendale, that's separated by the drainage right-of-way, that's actually part of the Jockey Club. So they were not required to continue the road past the drainage right-of-way. So as far as Charleston Park, the regular subdivision for single-family homes, they did in fact meet that requirement of the construction of that secondary access road.
And
Just discontinued, it stopped the road.
Right, that's where their development, the red line.
Yeah, you're saying the Jockey Club didn't.
Yes, sir.
Didn't push
In
into
other words, they
it,
did do their due diligence within their project area.
which they're right up to that fence.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And they built
built the fence.
the secondary access road utilizing Charleston Park Drive. So they did meet that requirement for
But
the
that's a good
original
point,
Charleston
but they
Park.
also built the fence right in front of that
Thank you.
requirement, which kind of
Yeah.
negates exactly the whole purpose, right?
Exactly. No, that's accurate. I just wanted to
Yeah.
point out that they weren't required to keep on going to the other side on Greendale, but they did block it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I just wanted to say something because I wanted to make sure you all had the right impression of where we are versus where we have been before. We've been extremely happy with the building department, what Mr. Miles is doing. There's been some changes to software and stuff, so we can look at something at the fire department now on the screen, the same set of plans that they're looking at. All of these things are still developing. That process, everybody's involved in SDR now. One of the things we found out, and I'm going to use a little hot button as an example, the water park. Okay? So the water park, from the very, very beginning, I'm going to go back as far back as there was discussion of it going over there, where there should have been a fire line and a hydrant location and some other things, what the size of that line needed to be. And when that project started moving forward, we said, okay, it can move forward, but these things need to happen. Those things didn't happen. Those things didn't happen. The next meeting, these things need to happen. They didn't happen. So just as recently as last week, we're having to meet with Kimley Horn on site and make changes on site on the property so that we're not doing a stop order project because they didn't do those things. And so we could have stopped the project a long time ago, but these are the things, and this is not completely uncommon as construction projects go. So there are certain things, it's written down and it's notated, and we say, okay, we're not going to stop you right now. We're not going to hold you up because sometimes these things take weeks. You know, Kimley Horn has other projects they're working on stuff, but we say, hey, it's noted here, this is what needs to happen with the best intention of the parties. Then you get to a certain point where you go, okay, you can't go any further until this is done because it's going to hold up the project. But obviously we try and do everything up to that point. I don't know, having not been in these processes at those times, I don't know if those were some of the circumstances. What I can say is the communication between the building department, SDR, plans review, everything else is better than it has ever been in my 25 years here, and it continues to get better. And that is really, really thanks to Mr. Miles.
Absolutely.
His staff. The fire marshal has done an extraordinary job with his staff. I'm not going to take any credit for it because it's really, honestly, a lot of it is outside of even my realm of expertise, but they're doing a great job and you should feel comfortable that. But we're going to still uncover things as time goes on that go back a little ways. Yep. The only thing we can ask the community is understand we will work with them and try to be good community partners. There are times when we're going to say, no, you can't do this and it has to change, but we have to be ever cognizant too of sometimes there's a change that might have been required, and had we caught it at the right time, we should have done it. But if it becomes cost prohibitive to a project,
there's a balancing act.
We have to be honest and say we do work and live in a political environment as well. And when we say, no, sorry, you can't do this, the next phone call we get is from somebody going, well, why can't you do this? And can we work with them? And so we try and balance all those things because it's very important.
And at some point, you get 5 calls saying,
well,
why are you? No, I'm just kidding.
But we understand that. We understand that too.
He only gets
so,
one.
It's
I get
right.
5.
Oh, you get 5. Sorry, yeah, that's true.
I just say this so you understand. We try to work in that environment. We try to be fluid. You know, our reasons, we always try and find a way to say yes or to work things through instead of saying automatically no. That's the customer service that we provide. We think that's what you would expect of us. With that being said, life safety is very important, and we're always keeping that in mind. So I just
And-
wanted to add
and,
that in and say, you should be very comfortable with where we are. I'm myself not comfortable with where we were in the past, but I think we've.
But I
addressed
do
a lot of those.
recognize, Chief, exactly what you're saying. We have worked on the process. It has gotten better. I mean, obviously, there's more room to go. You know, I guess for me, you know, because I'm not in it daily with you and Mr. Miles, you know, I don't see that plan. All I see is when we have issues here. All I see is when I have issues with citizens. Say, have done this and this and this. So if I can just, I just want to kind of get a little pride of where we're at right now in our process movements and things. That'd be great.
It'd
Thanks.
be great. Maybe we could set something up and actually, if you'd like to, walk through an SDR process on
Yeah,
one of the
that'd be great
projects.
for me. I mean, I'd love to do that, yeah.
Okay.
The way it's supposed to go?
Okay, we have one other public speaker card, and this is the last shot, folks. If you have something to say, hand it in now. Sheila, and I cannot read that.
My name is Sheila
Payette? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please state your name
It
for the
was just a
record.
clarification of points that were being discussed a few moments ago. I at one time was a resident of Charleston Park, not the villas. I lived there for 9 years. There is a second gate. It's a chain link gate, concrete up to the gate. After the gate is grass. The only time those gates were open in the 9 years that I lived there was when they resurfaced the asphalt. EMS and everybody uses the main gates. The communities are about the same size. I don't know the actual numbers. I currently am a resident of Charleston Park Villas. I just wanted to let you know that indeed there is a second gate, but it was never used. I think it's even locked.
That must be right there.
It's a chain
Let's see
link,
the gate.
you know, what can you say about a fence? There is no road. Whenever we opened the gate, we drove over the grass. We were all happy about driving over grass. We could give, ooh, I wasn't gonna say that. We were happy.
Too late now, too late.
Maybe it's up in the screen, they told me I can't say it. We were happy to drive over the grass for the period of time that we needed to use that gate for a secondary access. We did not have a second gate for EMS. And I understand that you're gonna look into the communities and the rules and the regs and how come and what are we gonna do now. I'm just pointing out what currently exists because you're looking at maps, I live there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. He did, Chief Titus, he sat down again? He just left. Okay. I think what my concern is with keeping a single access point is really about, if you look at the setup of Charleston Park and then the villas at Charleston Park, as you enter that main gate, it's very hard for a rig to get around. There's very limited space in that, from that main gate to where the first structure is. That would be concerning. And then versus the other side who has nearly it's a larger area entrance from the main road to the entrance point. I think that, and I guess we'll just go down the list or the line after I get done talking and we can kind of get a summarization of where we're at on this. I think that absolutely a second entrance point should be put in. But with that said, I think we need to pave the road, pave it or asphalt it, one or the other. And I do agree that all of the entities involved should have a cooperative effort that we can do this once instead of saying we're going to worry about paving the road only up to here so that Charleston Park has an exit, but then we'll worry about Jockey Club, 10 years down the line so they can have an exit. Let's do it all at once so that, one, it's not another $5 million in 5 years. So,
You're saying to pave Spring Haven entirely, or are you saying to
No,
just go up to the emergency exit point?
no, if you look at the portion, now I gotta pull it up on the map again.
I'm curious where you're talking
About the
about.
one on Grand Cypress that they were pointing out,
The back end of Charleston Villas, where it is now just a dirt road. Where they plan on, right, where the access is, right? that is all just gravel. Just, you need to pave it all the way up to probably past Grand Cypress so that you can turn around and have the Jockey Club continue their road into Grand Cypress. And then that road becomes another access point.
Well,
Go ahead.
when I was looking at the developer's order and they had a map, Roslyn Court was actually supposed to connect where the cul-de-sac is for Whispering Pine. Roslyn Court was supposed to continue and loop around, and that didn't happen. So
those are some of the things that we really need to look at. What's the best way to do it?
I think that's why the city manager had suggested that we just have the conversation and then let them come up with all the answers.
Conversation. So, but it would be helpful if he got a general idea of what the commission's desires are before he goes into too much detail and too much time of an effort of the staff for him to come back and have the majority of the commission say, no, that's not what we want. So
And how do we know what we want without the information?
Right. Well, to at least understand the concept that life safety is imperative, to at least understand that a single access point is or is not something that we feel is important, to at least understand that if you do require that single access point over there on that gravel road, that it become paved. Those are simple, easy tasks. That does not bear anything on your research. So, Commissioner Hanks, what's your opinions on this here so that the city manager can kind of...
Well, yeah, I would like to see that, and I do agree with you. If we're going to just do that access road,
We've
either to
already
this-
taken all of the public comments, folks. Sorry,
If
I
we do-
asked 10 minutes ago.
If we do take that road, all the way, say, down to the back end of Grand Cypress, I would like to pave that. That's still not interfering with the areas that we were having issues with before,
Right.
which is that corridor. I'd like to go ahead and see that paved too. I mean, you might as well do it, but I'd also like to see here where at Charleston Park, it was intended to come down into Greendale Road through that fence. I'd like to see that continue through too. And then that provides two areas. And I think that one there on Charleston and Greendale, that ought to be a pretty simple deal. You know, you're just talking about, it looks like about 100 foot there, you know, to cross that fence. So, yeah, I'm in with what I just said.
So you're saying that not only do we need to look at phase 2, but we need to look at phase 1 as well, making sure that those secondary access points okay, I agree. Commissioner McDowell, your feelings on this?
Well, of course, my concern is for public safety, but we also have to look at the costs and come up with an agreement for this road, dirt, paved, asphalt, cobblestone, whatever it's going to be, extending from Spring Haven to the emergency access point and no further. Maybe what we could do is with the Jockey Club, maybe have like, I think it's called Rycroft Court, and put like an emergency access right there at Britton Way. So that way then the Jockey Club has a secondary access.
So there where that cul-de-sac is, it just pulls
Yeah,
into
it's
Grand
just-
Cypress, it just goes on across?
Just in a,
Well, again, I think that's all left up to the road and drainage and the
can
engineer
look
to
at-
figure out, and that's not really our...
And you can itemize these things out. This road will be this much, this
Right, right.
access will be this
you
much.
gotta find out the costs of this
Well,
stuff
that's
too.
what I'm saying. Each
And that's
one, we
what
can
they will
line
do.
itemize those things.
I'd also like to have a lot of additional information that we had talked about today, like when the developer went bankrupt, does the DO follow? Single access to multiple places within the city of Northport that should have or were supposed to be built and that are still waiting. Something about shared costs, and looking at other access for the Jockey Club. Yeah, I'm all for all that. These are just different things that we have to look at before we can make a decision. But yes, safety is important.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Could I just get clarification, Commissioner Hanks, on what you were talking about as far as past Grand Cypress? Are you talking about?
Say again?
I
Where?
thought you had mentioned earlier Spring Haven continue, or pave that to where that emergency access gate is, but go beyond
No, well, it sounded
Grand
like-
Cypress? I mean,
no, it sounded like what the mayor was saying was she would like to bring it all the way to the back end of Grand Cypress, right?
Yes.
Right there where that road
Yes.
ends,
Where
and not go
Britton
past
Way?
it. Huh?
Where Britton Way is?
I don't see a Britton Way. I see.
Well,
Yeah.
that's nor here nor
Oh,
there,
okay.
because these are the things
All
that
right,
are
this
gonna
is
come up.
Britton Way. I'm looking at Google Earth and it shows
Yeah,
it as Grand
exactly.
Cypress. So yeah, Britton
Thank
Way,
you.
that's what she was saying, to pull it down to there. That doesn't interfere currently with any of the issues that we had with the wildlife corridor. It doesn't
Correct.
quite go up to it. So yeah, that's what I was saying, was.
We go all the way up to Britton Way when the emergency access exists right now, right where it is.
Okay, because you're looking at the singular issue. When I was
Yeah.
talking, I was talking about looking at it from the 1,000-foot level, saying, okay, how do we make this a secondary access point to not only the Charleston, the villas, but also Jockey Club? Do it all at once.
You also got Vestridge Road there that just dead ends, and there's
I mean,
nowhere to go, but it could
there's so
turn
many
right into
more
Grand
than
Cypress,
just,
and then that adds a
You
double
know,
access
look
there.
at it in a grand scheme of things instead of just singular, so.
Right now, that entire area just has that single exit.
Right, okay. So anyways,
We're just having a discussion, we're just looking for costs, so.
Vice Mayor, is there anything in particular that we haven't touched on? Reviewing phases 1 and 2, the secondary access, having additional info coming, other areas where a secondary access has not been put in or completed, making sure that the Jockey Club and other adjacent areas are all part of this review, and to see what can be done about a cost share maintenance plan. That's what I've got so far.
Yeah, I mean, that's nothing specific, so
Right.
you're asking for a whole lot of information. I think the key thing for me is just making sure that these folks have that emergency access that's on a road that's, you know, like a paved roadway.
I think so.
And also paying attention to that phase 1 as well, so.
Maybe
And
we
once
can-
you get all this information out, you'll be able to decide on, you know, all of those other points of
Maybe
it. And
staff-
have that community input part of it, because I think that's so
Absolutely.
critical. If you're gonna intertwine these
Yes, I
neighborhoods.
think that's,
And maybe staff can bring back the cost of a paved road, since you already have some of it from when we were doing Spring Haven, and just
Yes, ma'am.
shortening it to using the access, the emergency access point, and then the later one down by giving us both.
I think all of that will come before us when they look at the grand scheme of things, and then they can say, okay,
can
if you
line
only
item
do it
out
up to here, it's
each.
gonna cost this much. You go up to here, it's gonna cost this
Yeah.
much.
So let's put it on the
That's-
list.
That's
That's
all
all.
part of it.
Well, I'd like to see it on the list, that way.
So everybody can see what we're looking at.
Okay, and Commissioner Luke, because we gotta move it, we've got another meeting.
And several items to go through.
Yeah.
I'm for, of course, emergency access information. Staff had already said that they were wanting to bring back more information and options, so I'd like to look at that. But it's paramount because we have in motion, just as of about an hour and a half ago, problems with Wood Lane, so it has to be addressed as
Okay,
soon as
Wood Lane,
possible.
good point. Forgot about Wood Lane.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so do you have your idea of where this commission stands, city manager?
Yes, ma'am.
No direction needed or anything in particular?
No, I think we can, based on what you all have said, we can get you that information. We'll get you some additional options on top of just the 2 that have already been presented, and have the SDR process here shortly as well as requested, so we'll get you copies of that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on. We have,
Thank you,
and
folks.
if y'all can just be a little. we're going to have to break for 10 minutes. I guess we're gonna have to come back open to 6 o'clock and then recess and go back
Have
to
to
the
go?
road and drainage, right? Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute recess.
No, you'll be up. I think you'll be up next.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. It's 6:13. We are in the city chambers. I call the city commission regular meeting to order. Those present are Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor Yates, Mayor Carusone, myself, Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Hanks, City Attorney Slayton, interim city clerk Pito, Police Chief Garrison's in the back here. If we would just please remember to put your phones on vibrate or silent. If not, you buy dinner. Someone snuck out of here without buying dinner earlier. If you have any public comment, we will be having the general public comment soon, and you can go ahead and fill out one of these cards. You can also fill one out for any of the agenda items in here if you don't want to wait until it comes up. And if you'll all just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance with me, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all. We need the agenda. I've been informed that we're pulling item 4B. And Commissioner Luke, that was yours. Did you want to say something to that fact?
It is being rescheduled. There was an incident that arose that didn't allow us to be able to have it on this agenda, so it will be rescheduled.
Excellent. Okay, anyone else having any items that need to be pushed, moved, what?
On the consent, I'd like to pull B, D, and F. D and F.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so let's go ahead and, what was that?
We're going to need to pull general business item 6F. Person has removed themselves from consideration.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
I emailed the commission earlier today when we got notified. She notified us this afternoon, so she will not be our new deputy city clerk, so we'll have to start that process.
Okey-dokey. So shouldn't we keep
Leave the item on there.
it on there so that we can have the discussion of the process?
That would be fine. I
And
just wanted
give
to make
you-
sure that everybody's aware that we won't be approving that item.
We'll be talking about
So
something
we
different.
want to talk about that process at that point in time. That'd be good. That'd be fine.
And just for the public's sake, city attorney, there is no problem with keeping that on and talking about the process versus the application.
No, ma'am, the subject matter is still covered by public notice.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion would only be to pull the one item then. Go ahead.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented, pulling item 4B, the Warm Mineral Springs presentation.
Okay, so it's been moved by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Anything to that? Seeing none, let's vote. And that's unanimous. Thank you all. All right, so next up is announcements. City Clerk.
We have the current vacancies on boards and committees, and they include the Art Advisory Board, the Audit Committee, Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizens Tax Oversight Committee, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, the Environmental Advisory Board, the Historic and Cultural Advisory Board, Joint Management Advisory Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, Public Utilities Advisory Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have the upcoming expirations on the following boards and committees: Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway, Charter Review Advisory Board, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, the Firefighters Pension Board of Trustees, Joint Management Advisory Board, Public Utilities Advisory Board, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. There is a position open on the Sarasota Manatee Metropolitan Planning Organization for a Northport resident. If anybody is interested, you could contact us at the city clerk's office.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So
We're gonna
we are
continue with
first
this
going
meeting?
to do our public comment, and we're going to continue through this meeting. Let's do up to at least the public hearings. We'll get through the presentation.
People here for other stuff too.
I understand that. Let's get through the public comment, the presentation, and then we'll go back and finish up road and drainage, and then we will go to general business or public hearings. Okay, so real quickly, public comment. We have it. Inga Harry? Inga, I messed that name up, I know I did. If you'll just go ahead and state your name for the record.
Okay, I'm Inga Harry, and I have addressed this commission once before about the same issue. Back in April, I believe. And I was told by the commission then that the issue would go away because you're making new codes. The issues that we have a lot that is combined is homesteaded to our principal residence. And we were told we can't park our boat there. It is across a small street, side street of a side street. We have since been postponed at least 5 times for a hearing. And finally, we were told we don't have to go to the hearing. That issue is nixed, and we don't have to deal with this anymore. A few days later, we get a violation notice that we are not in compliance, that our boat is still parked there. And now we're wondering how this can happen when 3 or more adjacent or abutting residential lots, one of which has a principal structure, have common parcel boundaries and are administratively combined by the Sarasota County Property Appraiser, which is all that applies to us. Okay, one bus, one truck tractor may be parked and stored in the property. Okay, and then in a tiny little sentence it says residential lots located across the public right-of-way shall not consider abutting. How can the city consider a lot not abutting when it is in the same tax lot?
Okay.
How does this have anything to do with protecting the public health, safety, and welfare to its citizens? Which is the claim that Northport, the city of Northport, makes in this whole new code of 2018-09. I would like some answers.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat. Thank you. City manager, can we get some information on this particular case? I know that it's been ongoing, and I remember that I had suggested that we
directly discussed that.
I know we did.
And there was
So-
information sent out to the commission on this item. The lots are across the street from each other. They can't be combined by the tax collector. They can be for tax purposes, and it specifically states on there that this is for tax purposes only. Because one of the issues with combining lots that are across the street from each other is if you did combine them for our purposes, that means they could put a fence across the street. That's just an example of a problem that it can cause, which is why they have not been combined as far as the city was concerned. It's only for tax purposes. But I have Mr. Miles, this was addressed back when Mr. Williams was a director. It was discussed.
Right, but I think what the question is when we redid the code, we specifically said that it didn't have to be combined via dissolved lot lines, that they merely had to be combined for tax purposes. So where is the conflict?
And I'll get you information on that.
So, because that makes a big difference.
And we specifically talked about whether it's catty corner, whether it's right in front.
Yep. We'll get you information on it.
Yeah,
I'll have
because-
Mr. Miles get with the commenter and
Yeah,
We'll
because
get the issue
meanwhile,
issued.
they have another violation, which we specifically deregulated.
Yep.
So, you'll have to speak with Mr. Miles in the back. Mr. John Harry,
Yep.
did you want to speak? Okay. Inga Color, okay. So let's go ahead and have you meet up with Mr. Miles. You can discuss it with him.
keep us
And in the
posted.
meantime, we'll figure out what, if anything, has been miscommunicated here. Okay, folks, next is the presentation. We have no other public comment, by the way. Let's go ahead and go downstairs, and if we can have everybody from Hope for Northport, as well as our winner chicken dinner. And we're gonna need some mics, yes, okay, awesome. And then is Kathy here? Awesome, okay. Thank you. We meet now. No. Come on up, Kathy.
We're going to take off.
Andy bars.
Maybe we should go up here, guys. Here, come up here. See, there you go. Now they won't, see? I'm looking out for you. So real quickly, what I want to explain what we're doing here today is that this is called the Priscilla Vespia Award. What we did over a year ago now, right, is that we created and developed an award to go out to a single parent that was going above and beyond the call of duty in raising their child. And then I'm going to pass it to Kathy, who can talk a little bit about why it has been named after her mother, because that was the inspiration for this award. We do plan on doing this every year. We plan on giving the award out by people, what's the word I'm looking for? Referring and nominating different types of parents, that individual parents, single parents that are actually, you know, in need or just doing it right, period. Because it's not easy to be a single parent anymore. It's just not. And there's just as many single dads these days as there are single moms. So in return, we have had a fantastic community. We always have a fantastic community here. But in return, Hope for Northport had said, we'll do it. We'll take on the responsibility of collecting the funds. We'll work out the details. We'll go through all of the applications, so on and so forth. And finally, we gave those applications to the Vespia family, who actually got to choose the winner. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Steve, so you can say a little bit more. And then I'm going to give it to Kathy, who can maybe explain a little bit about your mom, why this is so important, and why your family chose the winner.
Thank you. My name's Steve LeClaire. I'm the executive director of Hope for Northport. And when Vanessa approached us about this, it was a yes right away, because it was fitting in with our mission and our vision to be of support to this community. We are a community development corporation, and as a child of a single parent who went to every length to make sure that we always had and didn't go without, I saw this as right in my passion. So I was gracious to just put the word out to the community of people that I know, and I had over 14 people step up and help with this process, because you could only imagine, you know, the amount of people that were needed to just go through the paperwork and pull them together and get a consensus so that it was a real reflection of the story that we heard about Priscilla, and just to be honoring her And all we did, it was just an honor for us to be part of that and be able to bring those people and to be able to honor you today. So.
Can you tell me who's here?
Yes, I can. So we have our recipient, but our committee members are Connie Mulligan, and we have Gary and Harleen. My wife, Amy LeClaire, is taking pictures of us. But we also have several individuals that aren't here. Sandy Griffith was on the board. Ray Cleveland was integral, as well as Linda Mecklenburg. And we had several behind-the-scenes people that were helping us identify nominees and get the paperwork and all the fine-tuning to the process done. So that's our great team that came here, and they were willing and able and ready to go again for next year's round of nominees. So
We're excited.
I got notes because I'm actually representing my 6 brothers, so I was elected to do this, so I don't want to miss anything. First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Vanessa Caruso, thank you very much, and Steve Leclerc, Executive Director of Hope of Northport, as well as his staff and volunteers. You've created and assisted with the Priscilla Vespia Fund, and we can't thank you enough for that. The whole family is very touched. The Priscilla Vespia Fund was created to recognize single mothers in honor of my mother, Priscilla Vespia, who raised 7 children as a single parent, working 3 jobs and making numerous sacrifices for her children. Sadly, we lost our mom to cancer in 1999. It is somewhat special that we present this award in October as we honor the many other women out there who are fighting the battle against breast cancer. My brothers would have liked to have been here to present this award with me. However, they were unable to attend due to other commitments out of state. Our family reviewed all the candidates, and each were deserving of the Priscilla Vespia Award. However, there was one that our family felt was most deserving. That person is Sheena Ray. On behalf of the entire Vespia family, we want to congratulate you, Sheena, on being selected for the first Priscilla Vespia Award. I'm going to start crying, you know that, right? Based on your application for the award, we know that you would put your children above all else like our mom did. Congratulations on a well-deserved award and your commitment to your family and your children.
So now, go ahead. If you'll tell them what she's received.
we were able to, in a very short window, because of the loving community that we have, to raise $2,125.55. And in addition, we had a couple of corporate sponsorships. You can use that at work. And Walmart and Dollar Tree stepped up with $50 gift cards as well, because we know even the little essentials go a long way in making a difference in our lives. So we're proud to have you as our first and forever be our first recipient of the Priscilla Vespia Fund, and we look forward to the impact that'll make on you and your family.
I'd like to take you and your child to JCPenney, which is where I work, and we'd like to get you each an outfit as well for the holidays.
Thank you. Thank you. So before I hand it over to our award winner, I just want to thank the commission, because I know that the commission donated a lot and also supported this wholeheartedly. And I think without our commission, we couldn't have done this, because you know the community comes forward when it comes to what we bind together as one. So thank you to my other board members. Thank you. And then it's all you.
I just want to say thank you. I know a lot of other moms struggle, and to be picked is just amazing. Sorry, I'm ugly crying. It just means a lot, and I really appreciate you and your family.
We appreciate all you do on a daily basis.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you again next year. Woo! Hopefully with a lot more. If you need us, call us. Thank you so much.
Before we leave from being up front, I want to introduce Kendra Howard and the Weeblos. They have. Exactly. I went to the community yard sale, and these guys drew me right over to their booth. And so they are getting, well, I'm going to hand this over to Kendra, Miss Kendra, as they call her, Miss Kendra, and she can describe or tell us what and why they're here.
Good evening. This is Mary Lumen. She's also one of our den leaders, and she's So we are Cub Scout Pack 257 here in Northport. This is our group, part of our group of Weeblos and Arrow of Lights. These young guys are getting ready to go into Boy Scouts, so they're in their transition year. Hence, Cub Scouts that you'll see around town, they have a blue uniform. These guys are already into their brown uniform, okay? They're 4th and 5th graders. Arrow Lights are our 5th graders. Weeblos are our 4th graders. They are here working on, they're building a better world requirement, trying to learn a little bit more about city government and function, community function. So that's why they're here observing. We want to thank the commission for having us in this evening. Mr. Rich Arnell, who's a firefighter here in town, is actually our Cub Master, and he's on shift tonight and could not make it. But it takes all of us working together to get these guys through program, and a very good, strong, healthy pack here. We have close to 60 kids. And we have at this time, between Weeblos and Arrow Lights, about 16 youth. So a large group. Yeah. Real quick before we go, these guys would like to do the oath and the law for the group, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So boys, okay, and who wants to lead us? Logan, can you lead us nice and loud?
Which one?
The oath. Guys, get your hands up, okay? All right, nice and loud.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty, to guide my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep my fellows mentally awake and morally straight. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Good job. Thank you for coming. You guys did great. Good job.
Oh, I know.
Get my chocolate. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We have one other public comment that didn't get in, and it says general public comment, so we'll go ahead and do it now. Sarah Norris.
Hi. Hi.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sarah Norris.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm with the Northport Huskies. We're a football team here. We have been undefeated for quite some time now. We're going to regionals.
Awesome.
We're usually pretty top in the nation, but our boys, majority of our team is on scholarships due to low income, and our boys haven't had much success in raising money. Instead of asking for help from the community or from the city free-handedly, I'm wondering if our boys could do anything to help clean up any of the community parks, sides of roads, parking lots, in exchange for food, snacks, donation, any type of donations to care for 24 boys. to continue to pursue their dream. They are required to keep a minimum of a 2.5 grade level, good reports from teachers and parents, or they're pulled from games. So we keep them pretty structured and well behaved. They're willing to work for some type of support. Wondering if you guys would be interested in being involved.
City manager?
If the commission wants, I mean, we can look for something. Obviously, I'm sure there's parks that we could have cleaned up. The question would be what the commission is wanting to contribute. I don't have it in front of me, but I can look it up real quick. You guys want to talk about it for a second and see how much is in the budget for community donations?
That would be great. While you're doing that, something that the football team at Northport High School did was they rent out the team, and you just gave a donation. So like people would call them up to clean around the house. And they'd give a donation of X amount of dollars. That went over so well. There were people who still wanted them to come back after it was already over.
Okay.
And they posted it all over Facebook, and I'm telling you, that is awesome. Because I have some garages I'm ready to have cleaned out that I'd be more than happy to hand over a donation for.
I was actually going to mention that in a conjunction here, if there's any kind of community collaboration that we have too, that we already do. I don't know, probably not, but it'd be nice to be able to put something out where the community can even, do exactly what you said. I like it.
So if you do that, say, rent the team for a day, get it out on Facebook, social media, so on and so forth, and maybe get with city manager, and we can put that on our webpage as well. And then, that would support that kind of community. The other thing is we have several organizations like Kiwanis. There's a offshoot of Kiwanis, which is called For the Children. All these different groups here in the area will give money towards something to this degree. Rotary Club, the Moose Lodge.
I need to write all these down.
I'm just going to pass a card.
Okay.
And then you can call me.
Okay. Okay.
There you go. And
Thank
then in the meantime, I was trying to stall as much as possible, but I don't think I can stall anymore. Anyone else?
Can you tell us a little bit, how old are the Huskies that are?
This division is 10U, so they're 9 and 10. They are primarily 4th and 5th graders. The coaches are all volunteers. They work with the boys. We train 3 days a week, and when it's off season, we still train, sometimes up to 5 days a week if their grades are maintained and they're keeping their rooms clean and moms and dads have good reports. The coaches are really good with our boys as far as if a mom says, hey, my son's not listening, or his grades, or the teacher gave a note, we give them extra laps or have them pick up after a football game. So we definitely work with our boys and make sure they understand that one represents the rest, and we represent Northport. The boys are lovely boys. You can always come out. We're right next to Morgan Center. We have our last home game there. We've been undefeated until this last game, but we normally are 45-0. No teams can really even score on us, not even a point. So they're good players.
City manager?
I mean, you asked me to tell you, they're good players.
I've known this team for a long time.
No.
And what she's stating is very true. Back before the city had a lot of fields, they actually, within their first couple of years, started over in that long field in front of Patriot, over on Toledo Blade, in the very beginnings before there were city fields really available for them. So they've got my heart, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, city manager, what do you got?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, Commissioner McDowell has got her light on too.
All right, so pretty much you don't have anything budgeted. What you have in your budget right now is you have $1,000 that was designated for the Charlotte estuary, and you have $5,000 that was budgeted for special events. We could use contingency funding for something like this. We could certainly, depending on the amount that you all wanted to make available and how you wanted to make it happen, we can take it out of contingency would probably be the best bet. But that's
What was that $1,000 for again?
the Charlotte Harbor Estuary Program.
which we're not in, right? I mean, I don't know what, so how did we save it?
We designated $1,000 to be donated to them in your budget.
Oh, I gotcha.
I'm the representative for the Charlotte Harbor.
Right, right. I wasn't sure, but I thought we already paid them, so.
Every year we have to pay.
Right, so this is an additional $1,000?
The $1,000 is a donation the commission has budgeted for years as a donation that we
Isn't it
make
a
to them every year.
membership, though?
I thought it was too.
Membership, yeah, that's what I thought. I don't think it's really a donation. It could be classified as that, but.
That's what it's classified as the line item. Whether or not they receive it as that, I don't know. But that's to say, that's the only thing. There used to be, I think, another $500 or something in there, but that's been removed over the years.
Okay. Okay, Vice Mayor.
Well, I had a question, and I know the Huskies going back from before they were the Huskies and when they first started, and it's just awesome to see over the years what's been accomplished, and especially with all of the challenges in not having a field. So, and that's a reflection of the parents and the volunteers like you have. So awesome job. How many kids do you have now?
24.
24.
The 10U.
On her team, though. not
That's
the-
all the
yeah.
other teams have found their
Yeah.
places.
Okay. And so you're looking for your team for these 24 kids?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is there like a budget or an amount that the team is seeking to help them along the way? Like,
There hasn't, we haven't had donations as far as monies yet. It's been like a couple packs of Gatorades and stuff, so we haven't really set a number. We just know that some of the children won't be able to have like a hotel room, so we've got to get extra rooms. So the money, we haven't even figured it out completely yet. It's just we've been willing to take donations or do work for it. We did a car wash and didn't end up raising that much money, so I know that we were still just looking for anything that would help.
and that's to go to the championship?
Regionals. It'll be in
Right.
Orlando, November 15th through the 18th.
I was
Okay,
going to
that's-
ask,
that's
is
what I
it
was
still in
wondering.
Orlando?
Yes, ma'am.
As a
Okay.
Huskies mom, I know.
Yeah. Oh, you see? There you go. What's your son's division?
Oh, he's long gone.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think we're all going, our 10U, 12U, possibly 14U, I think.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. I just know we are, and a couple other of our divisions are going.
And you're going to have probably two parents. You're still have
There's
the
going to be
parents
other,
go
we
and-
have at least three coaches and their wives and team mom.
So do you have an idea of how much you need to raise?
You're
Because
gonna need at
November
least
15th is
1,000.
At
coming
least,
up.
I put on the,
1,000 per
when I
person.
created on Facebook, at least $1,000. And I was
Per
also letting
person.
people know
Well,
in the city that we were raising. I didn't tell them the amount, but on the settings, when I
Yeah.
set it, I put 1,000 as.
when I say 1,000 per person, you're going to have probably out of the 24 kids, you're probably going to have 8 kids who cannot afford to go.
That's why I'm trying to get an
So
idea,
that's
yeah.
why I say 1,000 per person, so probably 8,000, 8 to 10,000 would be well over what you need.
Yeah.
But just a rough estimate, because you need food, you need lodging, everything, transportation.
The league has us staying, we're designated to different hotels. The one we're designated to is Westing. And they did provide a discount, so,
It's still gonna be, what, 100 a night?
yeah, it's
And
130 a
it's-
night.
And it's not just one night, it's what,
It's
3
3 nights.
days? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, just
Could
give you
this,
a general idea.
I don't know if it's even possible, but, you know, we do have the 5,000, which I think there's maybe 4,000 because we did a couple of special event designations. I don't remember. I think it was over 1,000, right?
Well, the money hasn't all gone out of there. You designated,
One was
just the last
1,000
meeting,
and
one
then
was
it
1,000, and the
changed.
other was, I think, it's either 500 or
50.
250, something like that.
Okay. So we do have some monies in there, and I'm just kind of wondering, as far as, because this is for this regionals,
Yes, ma'am.
if that somehow can qualify into that. I just kind of have a little concern without having a program or something, you know, that we need to find a fit for this, and I will get with you after this. Unlike the mayor, I don't have a card to give you right now, 'cause I
Okay.
don't have any on me.
My card.
But I will get with you as well.
Okay.
But like I say, I'm just wondering if we can, in that special events program, could that work?
I guess my concern with using special events is it's not even the end of October. And now that we've changed the criteria to make it more people-friendly, that we'll have more people actually utilizing it.
And if that's the case,
In
you
the
do have
contrary, I would like us to use some of those contingency funds to add to maybe the special events so that it could do something like a community fund. We had a community fund
But we
all
need
the
to
way up
establish.
to, we had one, all the way up to 2005 or 6.
Yeah, well, we
And
probably.
we talked about, I thought we talked about
Because
with
of
the
the
last
cheerleaders.
budget of, having some type
doing
of
anything.
community sponsorship designation of funds, so.
So maybe tonight's direction should be to, one, I think between all of us, to contact us individually. We can definitely steer you in a direction for some immediate donations.
Okay.
In the meantime, we will have to work through the process of creating some sort of community fund.
Okay.
That's not just for this, but.
Right,
would-
not for, just for
right.
this, but overall, because there has to be a way to hand it out. That we can't just arbitrarily hand over financial anything. So I think that we're all in support.
Using the
of-
contingency
of
fund
one-
to set up a community.
Yeah, okay. So
She may wanna-
let's get consensus down the line.
She may
Did you
want to
wanna
leave
say
her
something?
email address for us.
Well, yeah, if you can give your contact information to the clerk, and then
Okay.
we'll give it out, and then.
I don't know how long this is or anything, but I have to make sure I go back to the football field
Yeah.
before 8. So.
That's why.
Oh, no, you're going to be done in about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
What is the date for, the deadline for regionals, though? That we do need to know.
We go to regionals November 15th
Right.
to the
Oh,
18th.
geez.
We have to book at least 2 weeks before we go. Book the hotels and set everything else up. So, and when I'm not asking for hotel money, I'm just, whatever we get, we appreciate. But we'd
Okay.
like to make sure we have everything lined up to know we can take all the kids before we actually set ourselves up and then get up there with a mess.
All right, we'll probably be able to help you within the area, but as far as the government's concerned, I don't know if we'll be able to work through the process in time for that, but.
Okay.
But regardless, let's get a consensus down the line first to look at contingency funds to start a community fund of some sort, the parameters of such a fund, and bring that back to the commission for approval.
For a general, it's not for a specific one.
Correct,
Yeah.
for in general.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I'm good.
Hanks
Yes.
is a yes,
Mhm.
Commissioner McDowell is a yes, I'm a yes, yes, and yes. We're all 5.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I just ask, though, if you wouldn't mind, this is a public
We need,
meeting.
I'm sorry, but we need
go out 10 and I'll
to
set up
get
the
some
two.
clarification here.
Oh.
So hold on one second. And Commissioner McDowell is next. How much?
Necessarily for this one.
Correct.
But how much do you, because
In the
we'll
fund.
bring you back and just like with the special event assistance program, parameters that you can tweak and,
Right,
make so
right.
what you like, but we know how much to take out of contingency to start the fund with.
So should we,
I'll be honest with you, I would like to see it up just a little bit, so we have some leeway to move
Right.
around for these multiple things that happen.
okay, so 5,000?
I was thinking 10, but okay.
I was thinking 5 because we originally had 10,000 in the special event, and we decided this year that we were going to see where we're at 5.
Okay.
So
Well,
that
then
just makes up the
with
other 5.
with that and with this one, we have 10, so that helps benefit
Okay,
all of them.
Commissioner McDowell, is it okay for 5? Commissioner Luke, 5? Myself, 5, there you go, you got your consensus. Okay, Commissioner McDowell and then Vice Mayor.
I think once you decide your fundraisers after talking to the commission and other entities, that maybe we, as a city, can help you promote that.
Okay.
Using social media, so maybe we need to give city manager direction to get with her once she gets everything finalized, hopefully soon.
Okay.
We
Because,
did that, but
well, I don't.
we didn't do a down the line consensus, but I thought we kind of alluded to that. So is it okay if the city manager works with the Huskies in order to promote on the website and other social media access their fundraising activity for this particular regional fundraising? Down the line, Commissioner Hanks, yes?
Yes.
Commissioner McDowell, yes. Myself, yes.
I think if we're going to do that, we're going to have to open it up to everybody else that has something going on.
Well, we did that.
Yeah, that's what,
I'm just saying.
that was my whole point, was we need to not
So if we're
specify.
going to, if that's allowable, first of all, for the city to even do that for fundraising things.
When they're going to
People for
something
trees, we did it
big
for-
like this is a youth activity. We've done it for People for Trees. When there's something that benefits the city, and this will benefit the city, I mean, look at the pride that the city takes in our youth and the activities that our youth do. I really think that this fits in with those parameters.
I'm just erring on the side of caution.
Absolutely, I get it.
How we choose
Correct.
all of these things.
I mean, we have the Weeblos here, so, you know, we have other groups here, and, you know, with an opportunity like that, I just want to make sure that, you know, in doing that, that it's not going to be picking and choosing.
Right.
You know, we have a wonderful community here. If there's a way that we as a city, first of all, like I said, we can do it, then I think all should know that the city is here for this community, and we work together at all of these different things and make sure they all have that opportunity.
So I think that this commission, as a body, has already kind of given that direction, that when we talked about the website, creating some sort of a community area where people that needed to promote their community event, whatever it may be, that they could utilize that, and I could have sworn we talked about specific to People for Trees. So that's why I thought that it was kind of it was okay, because we already gave that direction.
Well, we kind of formed that sort of partnership there. Right. Okay. Because you will get sometimes requests that go down a path that you
Don't want to go down, I get that. I get that.
I think Commissioner McDowell gave that explanation as to how this fits into the community's, you know,
right,
philosophies
I
and
think it
best
also
interests and
helps
so
with
on.
economic development, because you're going outside the city.
But I also like how you think out of the box, Mayor, and you gave some other opportunities too that they can do outside of that, which I think is great.
Okay, so Commissioner Luke, you're yes on...
I'm in the same,
Okay, so
same
it's-
belief as Vice Mayor.
Okay, so the three of us said go ahead and work with them.
Maybe when the city manager comes
No.
back.
What I was talking about was the media. What I was talking about was the Facebook posting, website, stuff like that is what I was talking about. Not working with them, but the publication of
That's what
spreading it.
this consensus is for, to allow the Huskies to work with the city manager to partner up on making sure that we have their fundraiser, once they get it all organized, on our webpage, our Facebook,
For
social
just
media.
regionals.
Yeah,
Just
for just the
regionals.
regionals.
Say no because it's not established policy for that. We don't have a community calendar on it.
Okay.
So we would be promoting one organization over all the rest, and I can't agree to that.
That next part is when city manager brings back the community fund for the, using community funds and the contingency fund, maybe they can bring back the parameters for how to use it on this social media, on the city's website and stuff too, to be kind of all encompassing.
Yeah, and that targets where I was going to say that make sure that we have a process.
Similar to special
so-
events.
So that it's fair and equal to everybody have the opportunity. So
All right, sounds
that's
good.
all I'm
There's
saying.
3-2, so you can work with the Huskies right now. In the meantime, I think that you do need to, I think that it's clear that we all want the like community calendar / partnership of the website as well as the social media to come back with that community fund. So with that, thank you very much for coming up.
And
go ahead. She has another question.
Yes.
It's
And my
7
question,
o'clock.
well, my question is that, you know, this is a public meeting, so is there a contact information that you can give folks? You know, the community's always there, there's people out there that may want to help. How can they get a hold of you?
They can get, I can give my name and number and the coach's name and number. Would you like me to just out loud or on paper?
Well, if you do it on paper, I'm just trying to say if you.
Oh, okay.
For the opportunity that if you're seeking the community to contact you in this regard. that-
Okay, well, my name is Sarah Norris, and my number is 941-769-0323. They can contact me or Coach Kevin Palmer, and his phone number is 941-268-0319.
Great, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we got that. Next up. Thank you.
Bye, Weeblos.
Arrow
Bye.
of light.
All right, so real quickly, we're going to jump back into our road and drainage meeting, so we have to recess this meeting so that we can finish up the road and drainage.
Can't we just finish with this?
We're going to finish up the road and drainage and get it done with, and then we'll go on to the commission meeting.
I think you have a petitioner here.
We have a lot of people
We have a lot
still
of
here,
people here,
but
we
they're
have
here for
people
the
here
commission
since
meeting.
4. So let's get this done. You ready to switch over? Let me know when.
You should be able to join, and we're good.
Yep, I'm in. Everybody in the district meeting again? Okay, we are back in to the city's road and drainage district regular meeting. And those present prior are still here. So this is a general item, general business 4A, second, oh, we already did that. So we're in 4B, which is the drainage easement agreement between MQ Coco Plum. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Belia is here. She can give you a brief presentation on this, and then if you have any questions, we can go from there.
Excellent.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. This is a request for a drainage easement agreement between MG Coco Plum LLC and Northport Road and Drainage District for proposed gateway at Coco Plum development. In a severe storm in the Coco Plum waterway, it will overflow the banks at the discharge overland and across the gateway at Coco Plum development toward a swale at US 41. The proposed development is located at the corner of US 41 and Salford Boulevard. The developer is proposing to redirect this flow with underground piping and a conveyance system to be installed by the developer. This will allow the road and parking to be constructed over the underground piped conveyance system. The developer is also proposing that an agreement be executed between the developer and the Road and Drainage District to allow this underground piping. Following key points, the developer, the grantor, is going to be required to install, operate, and maintain the underground piping conveyance system in perpetuity. The city grantee shall assist only if needed in emergencies or if the grantor fails to maintain and repair the system and public health safety is at risk for drainage backup. In such instances, the grantee will be allowed to access to perform the needed work, and the grantor shall reimburse the grantee for all reasonable costs and expenses. And this is the location of the 40-foot drainage easement within the actual development. Are there any questions?
Can you put that back up?
I don't see anyone with a light on. Commissioner McDowell.
My only question is a concern that I have about Exhibit 1, the easement agreement. If you go to number 6, letter 6. It says the guarantee will be responsible for all costs and expenses performed on such maintenance and repairs. It doesn't give a time frame that they would have to reimburse, and I really think we need to have a time frame in there because it might be 15 years before they say, oh, here's your check. I'd like to see some kind of language, like maybe within 30 days, within 60 days. And if they still don't pay, what are our protections that are in place? What are our protections in place?
So deadline for payment. And is
Anything else?
That was all that was the only concern that I had. I was also kind of curious about number 13. Starting to see that on a lot of these agreements, and I'm just confused by it all, but we'll save that conversation for another date and time because of time.
Okay. Vice Mayor, you're up.
Can you put the image up there? Can we get it any bigger? Righty then.
Yeah,
So the drainage right now, the stormwater drainage is on their property.
Yes, ma'am.
I was trying to zoom in closer to that, but we can't get any closer.
I think you can on your backup, on your iPad.
Computer, you can zoom it in.
This computer?
Well, both
You
of
can
it. This
have it.
one you can zoom in too.
Which one?
This one? Just click it.
Is that
and then-
better?
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you can,
No, my computer's not working. Right.
you don't have iLegistar on here?
No, I don't use the iLegistar. Oh, this one?
Yeah. Just click it.
Or that, yep.
Go to whichever one you want.
Oh.
Is that the right one? I don't know.
Oh.
No, it's not the right one.
Learn something new every day.
So,
With technology.
see, how many minutes do you like? I
Thank you very much,
go.
Commissioner Technology there.
don't know how far you want to get,
Okay.
but you gotta.
Okay. So right now, the stormwater is draining into a retention area, swale area,
Yes.
pond area, or wherever.
Yes,
You
yes,
say
ma'am.
yes, he says no. Can,
Okay. For the record, I'm Bill Murray. I'm representing M2 Cocoa Plum
On, who's
LLC.
paying for dinner?
What you have out there presently, you have a swale that goes across our property. It's a emergency overflow for the Cocoa Plum waterway, and it ties into the pipe that goes underneath 41.
okay,
And there is presently no drainage easement over this swale, so it's been there for years. DOT does have a portion of it under an easement. What we're doing is piping it and then giving you that easement, so that if there is an emergency, you can maintain it and be on our property.
okay.
Okay?
And so how far is that going to pipe?
Basically,
is it-
the entire length of from the canal all the way to just short of 41.
Okay,
So it'll be twin
That whole
pipes
length.
underneath there, yes.
okay, all right. Sorry, I just couldn't gather that from
No
this map, that, yeah. The other provision in here that I just had some question about, and I'm just not comfortable with what it says, is number 10.
That's, Exhibit 1, the
Um,
agreement.
Yeah, the agreement, page 1 of 6. No, page 2. Doesn't have a page number. And so this is for the easement, we're accepting this easement and the terms of it. And number 10, if you read the last line, says the city manager designee may agree to amendments that do not increase compensation to the grantor. When I was talking with the city attorney, this is kind of the template sort of language. I don't think it really fits and should be in here, and city attorney did not have an issue with removing that unless somebody can explain you know, what.
What that means.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Well, this is the agreement they proposed to us. I don't necessarily have an issue leaving it or taking it out. It basically means that if there's an amendment, I mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything, but if they wanted to amend it, as long as it doesn't change how much we pay them.
We're not paying them anything now, are we?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear, this is our language. It's not the grantor's language. This is common language that we have in many or most of our agreements. And so I think the question was, when Vice Mayor and I were talking, is there a legal issue with taking it out? And there's not. The reason it's in most of the agreements is it helps from an administration standpoint, you know, things that the city manager and staff can do that don't affect compensation under the agreement. That way it doesn't have to come back through the formal process. So I could not answer. I think for the city manager it might be, are there any business reasons for the terms here under that that might help administratively to be modified without having to come back through commission?
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, I would just say to commission that, you know, because it is an easement and has to do with, you know, the properties and the stormwater, that I prefer that we just take that out of there. I mean, I don't anticipate this is an agreement that's going to have many changes to it, so the importance of it, I think, just really requires it to come back to commission if somebody wants to change it.
I think a perfect example is what we heard about Charleston
Yes,
Villas. You know,
exactly.
honestly, I mean, in 2010, it changed where the city manager could pretty much do whatever the heck he wanted in readjusting all, little did you know, right, Pete?
Yeah.
But in adjusting all these DCPs and stuff, and some of them may very well be where city managers or administration in the past just said, don't worry about it.
And, yeah, so I would just ask that, you know, the last line of number 10 be stricken. There were a couple of other typos that are just scriveners, so that the attorney already has those.
We will fix those, yes, ma'am.
Fix those.
Anyone else? No? So I hear that we're okay other than lines 6 and 10. Someone want to make a motion?
Sure, but Commissioner Hanks has to help me with this technology stuff because I can't get my screen back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where you need to be.
All right, and we had another change, I think, that was suggested.
6,
for
deadline for
number
payment and
yeah.
consequences for failure.
Was there a timeline?
We did not say.
I was suggesting 30 days and,
It might need
or
to be
60
more.
days. It just, I think it's something that the parties.
Mutually
can-
agreeable?
Yeah, mutually agreeable, but there has to be a provision that also protects us if they still don't pay.
City attorney, what is the kind of, isn't it like a 90-day average after completion or something like that?
I'm not really aware of an average. The language that I proposed to Commissioner McDowell was within 30 days of receipt of invoice, because you
Okay.
do want to identify how you calculate the days.
Exactly.
So whether it's 30 or 60 or even
Okay.
90, I would suggest saying, you know, within receipt of invoice, because it makes sense that the city would have an obligation to present the costs for reimbursement. With respect to consequences, this is like any other agreement. You know, if they don't pay, we can pursue them for breach.
That doesn't have to be in there.
Do we have to put that language in there?
It's contract law. I
Oh,
think
I
that's
just-
what she's trying to say, is that you don't have to have it in there. But we're getting a sidebar going on here. What?
I mean, we're just talking about, because you were talking about consequences. The only consequence that I could think of, because you already have the ability to sue if somebody breaches it,
Right.
is whether you wanted to add attorney fees or something in there, or pre-agreed to, because there's always cost to sue. And, yeah, so if you wanted to add attorney fees and costs will be paid by the
Yes.
prevailing party or something. Now, the attorney, I'm not going to try to come up with the language for you. Amber may have
Yeah, no, that's
specific words,
sufficient.
but. that's your intent, we can add it.
Say any
I'll be
fee.
the- I'll be the city manager
Why
on the
don't
next
you say any fees? Any fees associated with it, the filing
To
fee,
specify,
the,
those fall under the definition of costs, attorney fees and costs.
So
attorney fees are your
and
professional
costs.
fees, and costs
Yeah.
would include your filing fees, summons. It can even include court reporter fees.
Part of the cost side. Okay, gotcha. All right, so did you get that?
The attorney gave.
Well, we need,
No, it
okay.
doesn't include all of that. It doesn't include the attorney's fees or anything like that.
So do you want to go ahead and make the motion? Just what you got plus the attorney's fees and costs.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the MQ Coco Plum LLC and the City of Northport Road and Drainage District for the drainage easement defined, adding to section number 6, new language that within 60 days of receiving the guarantees invoice, and also language that attorney's fees will be paid for by, attorney's fees and costs will be paid for by the prevailing party.
And number 10.
And number 10, I forgot about 10. sorry.
Removing the last
And
sentence.
removing the last sentence in number 10. I didn't flip my page quick enough.
All right. All right, so that's moved by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Commissioner, Commissioner Vice Mayor. Do you have anything to say about
No,
that?
thank
No.
you.
You have anything to say about that? No. Commissioner Luke, go ahead.
She stated after receiving the invoice, I think it should go by the invoice date, because you don't know when they're actually going to receive. So, I mean, they could say, oh, I haven't got it in the mail yet, you know, so I would just say date of invoice.
The problem with that, and the reason we don't normally do that is, and this is actually for their protection, if you think about, if you go by invoice date, if we don't, we would have, our best interest would be to mail it to them like return receipt or something, because if we go by invoice date, but we don't mail it for 59 days, they have a day to respond.
Then you will have to do received.
And that is normally, you know, that is your typical course when you're trying to recoup a payment like this under a contract.
With knowing that, that's perfectly fine wording. Thank you.
Or hand delivery, either way, you get a receipt
Okay.
on delivery.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Let's go ahead and, what'd you do now? Hit okay. Just hit close or whatever the heck that is.
It's gonna go dead. It says only 10,
Are
it's gonna go
you-
dead.
I'll see you later.
Me too. Oh.
Dear Lord, how did you
got like
survive this
17
long?
people running over there
Seriously.
to help you.
I don't know how. Now hit close.
Okay. You go missing.
Okay, now, it's been moved by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor. Anything else to that motion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. Awesome job, folks. Moving on. We are now on to item 4C, proposal utilizing Stantec. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all know, we had a methodology this past year, and the direction was to continue that into the upcoming year since we didn't adopt it, and to start much earlier than we did last year. So we are bringing you an agreement. Ms. Belia is here if she wants to go over the highlights of the agreement of how we got to where we are, but we want to get this started much earlier as you directed.
Anyone got questions on this?
I do.
I got to be honest, I thought this was going to come in a workshop or something where we had more time.
Now, this is the agreement to hire the consultant. This is not the actual going over the methodology.
This is just to pay him more money.
Yeah. But in speaking with the city, I have a hard time with this. You know, out of that 122, when we spoke, you said almost 50K goes in just postage. I'm sorry, that is such an antiquated way to do things. And there's so much better cost-effective ways, and I get it, this is the way that it's established, this is the route, but $50,000 of that is just for postage. I mean, MailChimp is a whole lot cheaper than that. And I know not everybody has, but MailChimp, phone calls, these are ways maybe we could save.
We have to notify them by mail.
State by state statute.
I'm saying, we gotta.
Well, then
gotta get
elect
state law
better
changed.
state lawmakers. I know, right?
Newsflash,
They're
the
breaking
statute is
our-
antiquated.
They're breaking us over
Thank
here.
you, Amber. Thank you for letting him know that. Okay, so point being, Vice Mayor, you're first.
And I'll say it again the next time. something else comes up.
I understand that the bulk of this is the postage, which is statutorily required, but with all of the work that was done, it's almost like they're not really starting from scratch, because we basically had said to bring that for the tweaking, because there was a lot of that was not problematic. So this other fee, I don't know, I just believe that it's a lot. The original contract was similar cost. So that's just a problem I'm having with it.
Was it lower cost? It was 70
was about
something. Yeah.
Plus the postage, though, when you add the postage, you
No,
add
no.
the two of them together,
I
we're just
thought
out
70
about.
was a total.
22 then, when you had that.
I thought 70 was a total. No.
No. That was just for the work, and then they came back and they did an amendment and then added the $50,000 for the mailing.
Okay.
So again, this is just, seems like they're steps ahead.
Right.
Obviously, with a new budget year coming up, everything's set up, they just have to change those numbers.
Just tweak it, like we had
So-
said. Address the concerns. It's not starting all over.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. To revise or update or tweak the methodology, quite honestly, they're going to be going back through the whole process again. It's not a matter of just taking all of the research and how they came about, how they were going to have the assessments. We had numerous meetings with them. There's all kinds of calculations that go into the work, coordinating with property appraisers. It's all going to have to be redone again. I mean, we're going to tell them how we feel that the product they came up with, how we would like to see that changed. But they have to go through the complete process again to get to that point. They can't just take what they have now and tweak it a little bit and come up with new numbers. It's not as simple as that.
This is my concern, is that we had kind of, and I swear we did this, that we had said, we want a workshop, we want to look at this more thoroughly.
Yes.
We
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
tell you what works, what doesn't work. And at that time, you'd give it back to them, and at that time, you'd come back with this is how much it's going to cost, and let's sign it. That's how I thought. It's almost like we're doing the reverse. Am I?
Yeah, well, how do they even know what they're going to be
proposing? Right.
And part of it too is that everything was done last minute. Because of the time frame that proposal
what he's
had,
saying.
or that had to be
Yes.
in because of the
That's
trim
true.
notes. So had that been started earlier, to me, this is just part of the process. We got cut short because it was take it or leave it when it was presented to us. That was take it or leave it. We don't have time to go back and do anything different. So, what's going to keep this
That from
process
happening again.
from that being the case again is that we have a workshop. They go in, they update the 2019-20, numbers. They come back and then they present something to commission, and commission says, whoa, wait a minute, that's out of whack. And now we're going to be facing another, $50,000 for
That's
them.
my concern,
So
too.
I'm seeing something missing in the completion of this process.
Well,
That we shouldn't be forced as a commission to just take that, okay, here it is, without this commission as a body. Because we can have all the one-on-ones we want. We don't speak as a commission. So there's something missing, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well,
I think that's the point of it being here this early, but city manager, go ahead.
In looking at the scope of services and what you asked for here, they're going to start with meeting with management in November. It says that they plan to have a commission workshop, #1, in December. Again, trying to get this process so we're not in August like we were last year. But if you wanted to have a workshop before we even got to this point, the problem with that is we most likely end up having another workshop anyway, because the consultant is the one preparing this. They need to be here to hear what you all want.
No, I get it now.
And frankly,
I'm sold.
if you look at some of these meetings, they take a long time.
Mhm.
And they charge us by the hour.
So did we have three workshops previously with the other one? I don't recall us having 3 workshops. We had one session, kind of expressed some thoughts about that.
I think we had one workshop and maybe a special meeting.
And then we had the special
At least 2.
meeting. It was just, okay, let's, yeah.
I had a one-on-one.
Right, but
We had
the one-on-ones
a workshop
don't
and I
really,
think a special meeting. At least 2 that I remember, at least 2.
the special meeting and one of the workshop.
The workshops, yes, ma'am.
Right. So, but is that because we ran short of time, or was that included in the scope of services in the first one? Because I thought it was multiple meetings.
Yes, ma'am. We had multiple meetings with staff and Stantec. And then in the scope of services in the contract, there was a designated amount of workshops and meetings and so forth with Stantec.
Right. And that was more than 2, I believe.
If I recall, it was definitely 1 workshop and I believe 1 special commission meeting. And I don't know if there was a 3rd, but definitely 2.
Yeah,
that I
the special
remember.
commission meeting was the methodology that we
Right.
had to public notice. There was nothing in between workshop and public notice.
No, you're right.
That-
And that's what was in the
That's
scope.
what we're trying to avoid, so we
Right,
don't
that's why
get a
we
take it and
added-
leave it.
This one, there's a second workshop added
There's a
in
second
there.
workshop added,
I get it.
And they're all much earlier in the year.
yes.
And
McDowell,
Did you have any other further questions?
anything else?
No, just frustrated with this.
Okay, Commissioner
cost.
McDowell?
And this is, I'm sure, just a scrivener's error, but I have to bring it to the attention on the legislative text. In the background information, it says during a city commission workshop held on August 21st, that was not a workshop. That was a
Special
meeting. And if this legislative text is out there for the public, that needs to be corrected.
Going to do that, I can give you a whole bunch of other
Well,
legislative
I just-
texts that have to be corrected.
I just want to share that concern that it was not a workshop. It was a special public hearing to discuss methodology that went out to all of the citizens. So I just wanted to throw that out. What is the deadline that the methodology will be completed? Prior to it going out to being advertised?
It may not even have to be out to advertise, because isn't it, there's a threshold that it must meet when it has to go house to house.
I believe,
If we're doing a new methodology, that has to be sent out to every household.
I thought it was if it increases by a certain percent.
Now, that's in order to increase by a certain percent, you must do a new methodology.
Oh, okay, I'm getting it backwards. All
But
right,
if we're doing a new methodology, you
no
have to
matter
mail
what,
it
it
to each
has to be.
household.
I got you.
Can you tell me when, so we're gonna have the first workshop, you all are gonna meet, we're gonna have another workshop, y'all are gonna meet,
right?
and then maybe another meeting before it goes to the public, so that we can see the final thing?
So in the scope of services, it has a workshop in December,
Okay, what number is that, please?
0.5.
Thank you.
And then 2.7 is present the results of the commission, city commission workshop number 2. This could be a follow-up to the first commission workshop in the first quarter of 2019. So that would be no later than the first quarter ends in March.
Okay, because I see something here about after an update in June.
Or it could be another meeting after the update in June, which is 3.9.
budget.
Probably what it means. That's what I
3.9.
assumed it meant.
See, and there's no 3.9.
Which is not a 3.9.
There's no 3.9, that's why I'm asking.
That is correct.
There's no 3.5 to 3.9.
Then it has the 2.11 that also says present the commission workshop in workshop number 3. It refers to subtask 3.9, it's also not there.
So can we get some, is,
Looks like there might be a page missing here.
I don't know.
It goes from 3.4 to 4.1, so I will have to find out about those tasks.
I would appreciate that.
And that would be the actual agreement? That's missing?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's for the scope of services for the
Okay,
agreement.
so then we're going to have to pull this item until we have a complete
Yeah.
complete agenda item.
Val.
Okay? So can I get a motion to pull this item, or what would be the, to postpone it, to?
Maybe we can do it November, November.
You guys talking about over there? Are you arguing with us? Will you get back to me? No, okay.
Can, we have a meeting on November 1st. We have a meeting on November 5th. I don't know what public notice is or what's required, but we're already meeting on those 2 dates. Maybe we can squeeze that in.
You have it? Hold on, she has it.
I don't have it. And I printed the whole thing. Mine goes right from 3.4 to 4.1.
Mine goes to task 7 for the total
I have
project.
task 7, but if you look on the first page where it starts task 1, then it goes to task 2, and then task 3, it goes 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, that's it, and then you flip over and it goes to task 4.
See that, or you have?
It's
you have
referencing a
missing-
task 3.9, but there's no
Yeah.
3.9.
I can't even get this stupid thing to work, so
And-
I'm
and
ready to take
based on
Legistar and
talking
throw
with-
it out the window.
With Ms. Balia, she doesn't see it either.
No, ma'am. I'll have to get it.
Okay, so
This is ridiculous.
Oh, you too.
Oh, I'm telling you, this is the worst software ever. It really is.
So do you think we could add it to like a November 1st or a November 5th meeting? That way then it doesn't hold this up until,
Yeah, we'll add to the 5th.
so do you need a motion to pull this item, Mayor? I'll make a motion to pull item.
Table it
Table.
to the next
Don't
soonest
quite know the
meeting.
difference, but that's fine, we'll table it. To the November 5th Road and Drainage Special District Meeting.
So it's been moved by Commissioner McDowell to table this item to the November 5th meeting, seconded by Commissioner Luke. All those in favor?
November 5th
Yeah.
Special Road and Drainage District Meeting.
It's
Okay.
kind of a gimme.
Well, I
Okay,
just wanna
let's
make sure.
go ahead and vote. And that's unanimous. Okay, so now we move on. Sorry, Stan Tech, missing stuff. Consent agenda, anyone?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Wait, hold on, what? You get the look.
I do. I just wanted to make one quick comment. The attachment on 5A for the road and drainage minutes says that it's 9:23. It should be 9:25.
That's why I pulled that item.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was going to pull that item, but I didn't.
Okay, so you can approve it with the amendments as noted by the clerk.
It's just the label of the
Right.
attachment on the agenda item.
Oh, so it's not even an amendment, it's just the attachment. Okay. Okay. So you'll fix it when,
Minutes that are attached are correct. It's just the label in Legistar that is incorrect.
imagine, Legistar not being right. Shocker. Oh.
Approve the consent agenda with the change that interim, yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so it's been moved by Commissioner Luke. Did you
No.
press your button?
I wanted to pull an item. We never got to pulling an item on this, Mayor.
Okay. What, will you remove your motion?
Yes, I will.
I wanted
And removing the second. What item do you want to pull?
B, and it's just for clarification.
Okay.
It will be quick and simple, I promise.
All right, so now we need an approval of items A and C with the with the change to the label.
Move. Second.
All right, and that has been moved by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor. Nothing to that. Let's go ahead and vote. And that's unanimous. Okay, so, how do I know this? Item 5B, Commissioner McDowell, what do you got?
So part of what we're approving with this agenda item is to give the city manager complete authorization to do the streetlights in the future, not bringing it to the commission. I think it's very good to at least have it on consent like it is, so that way then we know what lights are going in, where they're going in, and so does the public, because this is a very big hot topic item with the public as far as streetlights go. And it's just nice to know, and it's just one more layer that is very necessary.
Why can't we just get an update once a month that says that this many?
The citizens don't get that update.
Well, it can be the update, can be during a meeting. He can
Exactly,
give the update, and
like
that way they have access.
Correct,
The
the
monthly
staff
report.
now does monthly reports
Part of
that
the
go on
monthly
our
report.
agenda.
What it needs to do.
And then we all link that
Yep.
to our pages and they can follow it.
My concern is that we're gonna tie up, there's already a policy in place. It's 3 houses and whatever the.
Right.
Okay, so since the policy is already in place, there's no reason for us to bog down the process with minutia and having it have to come before the commission. So why not just allow the city manager, sign off on them, have ourselves a, part of that monthly agenda update, and, be done with it. How do you feel, Commissioner Luke? Yes?
I agree with your statement.
Let me get, go ahead.
Well, I'm concerned too, because this is linked to budget. This money that is in here for this is also linked to the budget.
Right.
So every year we have to approve the budget, and
Correct.
it includes new streetlights.
Correct. And he is saying that within that budget year, he is allowed to approve what has been approved by the commission,
What is budgeted?
which is budgeted.
More of
and
the
then-
reason to vote for it.
And just have us see where these lights went on a monthly meeting. Is that correct, city manager?
And that is correct.
I understand where Commissioner McDowell is going. I'm fine with, this agreement as it is, and then making sure it's on the monthly reports.
Yep.
But from a budgetary perspective, I think it's very important that when that budget process starts in March, that the reporting as a consolidation for the year to tell the commission where we are as far as how many have been approved and the approximate cost, so that we know where we're going as far as, increases in the electrical, and we can tie that to, 75 more lights or 50 lights or whatever.
Just don't see the harm of keeping it on consent and having it approved when it's done.
Here we are.
You have to.
Half hour on this agenda item.
I wouldn't
Need
have
I
pulled
say
it,
more?
but there's a sentence in there that draws concern, that the city manager is free to do and approve the agreement as he sees
And our
fit.
city manager should have leeway in these things.
It's not just informing us folks, it's informing the citizens who are concerned about streetlights.
And that's exactly what we're saying to do, inform the
Yep.
citizens every month about exactly what's going on. If they choose to watch, then they'll see. If they choose to read, then they'll see it. If they don't, they won't. And there's nothing else that we can do about that.
Call the vote.
All right, so what I hear is annual reports at budget, as what Vice Mayor said. An accumulated annual report at budget, and a monthly reports as the process is now. What is your question?
I just had a question as to, these are 75 streetlights. The way the procedure is right now, if somebody calls in, there's 5 houses.
There was 3.
No, it's
I
5.
think it's fine.
So.
That's a lot. I don't even have 5 houses around.
It used to be 3. Sorry.
Deal with that another day. But
Read that.
But what I'm trying to ask is that, so somebody calls, the staff comes out, they look at it, they meet the criteria. Are those people put on hold until we accumulate a certain number? Or is this just how much backlog there was that within a certain period of time, this is what we have to get us up to date?
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. Due to the fact that the city did have a moratorium for a few years with respect to street lights extensions and, granting approvals for those, we are still in the process of catching up. So what we did was, so for the period of the moratorium, we had all the requests that came in, we kept those on file. Then what we did is we have a process we're going through. We go back and we take a look at them at today's criteria, approved by the commission, if they in fact meet that criteria. And now what we're doing is we're addressing the backlog, and depending on how many we have budgeted, for example, in this year, we are taking that one step at a time to bring it to commission to get approval of the streetlight agreements.
Okay. And so, like, I just spoke to somebody at the Cranberry School just the other day, and I think their request was made over 6 months ago. They came out, she was approved, and she's like, they never put the street light. Is there a gauge or a guideline that you can give the residents, as far as how long typically when we're caught
we tell them when they call. Well, first of all, we will tell them within a very short time frame whether or not they even meet the criteria.
Right.
If they meet the criteria, we let them know about how long it's going to be, because they're placed on a list along with many others.
Estimated time of completion.
Yes, ma'am. So,
Which is
and we let them know
6 months,
that
9
how many
months?
we have in this budget year, how many people are ahead of them, and it could be, a couple of years, essentially. We also let them know other options they may have that they may be interested in. If you want to, for example, on your own, rather than wait to see if the city will put the light in and pay for it, on your own you can pay for example, a security light. It's maybe $10, $12 a month. So we'd let them know all the options in case they don't want to wait.
Okay, but you know what? Here's what I am concerned about, and if I might just jump off of this.
You're probably thinking the same.
Why has nobody asked us for more money? Because obviously we need to catch up with this.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
So we need more bodies, or we need more money, and I get that, we're all pushed to be very, very lean, but this is a little concerning if we're years behind.
Yes, ma'am. So what we could do is we could come up with our total number of what we are behind and the approximate cost, and then in this budget year, calculate how much that would be for us to budget. Either
I
the
see
budget
Parks
we're in
leaving.
now
I
or
think we
planning
should
for
bring up
future
an
budget
idea
years
for
to
that.
catch it up.
Okay, so,
Do they have more than 75 people?
Oh, yes.
So how many
Oh, my
people
goodness.
are on your wait list
man.
right now? Do you know?
Val,
Rough?
do you know how many people on the wait?
all right,
list?
so we need an overall report.
I'd have to check that. I'd have to
Okay.
check that.
We need an overall report on where we stand, what it's going to take to get caught up.
Right.
And how do we accomplish that?
Okay. We can
Okay.
get you that.
The same.
It's
I'm
very
done.
scary, isn't it?
I know.
Okay, so now I've got, apparently, yes. So we need an and let's just get consensus down the road
Yes.
here. Okay, accumulated annual report at budget, a monthly report as done on agendas, as well as an overall current report on what is needed, what's outstanding, and how do we get this accomplished, the lights, down the road.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
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 Okay, there you go, everybody, yes. And, man, we really need to check into other places. How do they do it? Like, seriously, it was always 3 houses, 5 houses?
If you imagine if you had 3 houses, the backlog would be even more.
That's what it used to be 3 houses.
The backlog would be even
I
more.
understand that, but what I'm trying to say is, how do other areas do it? That if they do it for 3 houses, how do they accomplish that without going bankrupt? That's my question. Okay, so we still need an approval of item B.
Move to approve item, item B.
Go ahead, push your button.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so it's been moved by Commissioner Yates, seconded by Commissioner Luke to approve item B with those consent items.
I'm good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, yeah, we can push buttons now. Okay, that's unanimous.
No, it's not.
We have,
No, it's not.
oh, 4-1.
Oh.
Got me. Commissioner McDowell.
The reason why I dissented is because we're giving the authority directly to the city manager, hence the conversation that pulling the item led to. Now we are not going to know really what's going on with the streetlights after we receive this information in the future. So once we get the information, we're going to know right then and there what's going to happen, but anything after that, we're really not going to.
No, it was in conjunction with the accumulated annual report at budget, as well as the monthly reports on the agenda.
Put it on
And,
consent.
okay, well, whatever, all right, it passes. So there's no other public comment for road and drainage. Do we have any road and drainage administrative reports of any sort? Seeing none, let's go ahead and adjourn that meeting. Praise God. Folks, how about we take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we will finish our general meeting.